Dear road rivals, you may have four wheels and a similar build, but our
What is it? Hopefully it still works. Like your fucking two other computers.
Those other two I didn't take very good care of. This one I actually did.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one was a little bit more expensive.
I can't believe Henry Kissinger died.
Times. I don't know who I fucked last night. I got Alzheimer's. I don't know who them hoes is. Man, they all lying. Brody, tell me who them hoes is. Man, they all fine. Running hooligans. Foolish things, I'm anti-Semitic. I just fucked a Jewish bitch. I just fucked Scooter's bitch. And we ran her like a Olympics. Got pregnant in the threesome. So whose baby is it? Whose baby is it? My niggas putting foolish things. I'm anti-Semitic. I just fucked a Jewish bitch. I just fucked Scooter's bitch. And we ran her like a Olympics. Got pregnant in the threesome. So whose baby is it? Whose baby is it? My foolish things. I'm anti-Semitic. I just fucked a Jewish bitch. I just fucked Scooter's bitch. And we ran her like a Olympics. Got pregnant in the threesome. So whose baby is it? Whose baby is it? My niggas putting foolish things. I'm anti-Semitic. I just fucked a Jewish bitch. I just fucked Scooter's bitch. And we ran her like a Olympics. Got pregnant in the threesome. So whose baby is it? Whose baby is it? My niggas.
I almost grabbed it by the glass. Huh? So you sold all of your cards?
Not all of them.
Oh.
Just I kept my older ones.
Do you want my cards? I'm probably not gonna sell them. You can have all of them, and then you can fucking do what you want
I
with
can
them.
sell them, but I'll take them. No, but I kept all my older stuff. That's the shit that's gonna go up in price over time, and it's like near mint stuff. So like, I kept all of my Pokemon.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that stuff's always gonna go up.
Because you feel like they're gonna go up.
Oh yeah, Pokemon will be around forever.
Yeah. Do you have any what's it called, cards?
What?
One Piece.
One Piece, I do.
Yeah. I remember that you were so fucking shocked because I knew that One Piece made a
I can remember the fucking.
Unless if you find one in there that's like worth a fuckload, I want that one. You know what I'm saying?
Plate now. Fuck, dude, I don't remember the password. How am I supposed to remember my high school password? These ones are. Did you sleeve these ones, Chase?
No, I didn't sleeve them.
You didn't sleeve these?
No.
Let's see how much that is. Let's see how much that is.
That was fucking weird.
I can't remember the password now. This is my fucking high school computer password. I don't remember what the fuck it was. This is my fucking high school.
Huh. What's up?
This one's $1.
That one's $1.
Heavily played, and that's what that is.
Fuck. How's it going, you delinquents? Alright. I don't know, I feel like we're probably just gonna watch some shit about Henry Kissinger. 'Cause he just died a few days ago. I think it was like 2 days ago when he died, yeah.
60 Minutes Rewind.
If, as Douglas MacArthur said, old soldiers never die, they just fade away, that can hardly be said about an old Secretary of State. Henry Kissinger refuses to fade away.
All this is getting
Let a
to
head
it.
of
Oh,
state
he-
visit
That's
America,
what I want.
and chances are one of the people who want to see is
Definitely
Henry Kissinger.
bothered by all of this.
Let a crisis break out somewhere in the world tonight.
Now she won't even
And
tell
tomorrow
me.
morning,
Well, he wrote the
Henry
book on
Kissinger,
diplomacy,
whose
so-
22 years
She
ago,
won't even tell me
will more
what's
than
bothering
likely
me,
be on
but
someone's
she
talk
still
show
tells
or on
me.
someone's op-ed page.
Give me shit
Let him
back.
write a book, as he has just done with Years of Renewal, the third installment of his memoir. Odds are it'll end up a bestseller.
And I was like, I know what that means.
Henry Kissinger's memoir begins with a portrait of Richard Nixon. You write about Richard Nixon that he was the most complex president.
Fixed, good, I like
She's
fixed.
watching my blood right now.
Although the timer is 120, so it might be a longer game.
The cult of the tough guy.
Oh man, so
You were
excited.
describing a quality that he had disturbed you.
So long and finally, like, once we broke up, we were living together. And it's like, I'm doing this shit. Like, I'm washing my own dishes. I'm doing my own laundry. And that's it.
No,
Yeah, he
she took all my
was.
clothes to her house and fucking
Demonstrate to his friends that he really was
Dude,
tough.
I'm so
To
mad.
demonstrate he was tough, Kissinger says Nixon would issue wild orders and often denigrate his associates.
Ah.
Kissinger, and who we learn in the tapes called
What am I?
Two Boy.
Well, but that's another one of these things that if you knew Nixon, I don't take all that seriously. That was
It's not a forgotten
what was
password.
going off to his orange
I don't
counter.
know, dude. I don't
That
think
is-
so.
But when Nixon made impulsive decisions in foreign policy to show off for his buddies,
Good
Kissinger
against
says
you
the
two.
staff learned
This guy's set up well.
But I want to get into
Purple.
Of firing off the whole string of
That
orders,
way we can actually save it.
which in foreign
Is it
policy,
the same password that you put on my fucking Studio
we're
One?
not kidding.
How about an alliance for now?
I was so buttered at you for that.
Except.
you knew when you worked with Nixon
This
what
is,
he meant.
it's my high school
For
password
example,
for my
in
computer in high
1969,
school.
Kissinger called Nixon,
don't
who was with his friend B.B.
Huh.
It's like a
Bro. I like Nixon. I don't know. Everyone's like, oh, he's the worst president ever. I think that he was funny.
And he was like setting up the studio, and then I came back, and you set the password, and it all on your game.
yeah.
And I was like, you
Nobody was there. I was
motherfucker.
trying to get this shit.
I know. I was like, oh, see, I was like, you could have set it all up, but you should have waited for me for this. Because then when I like,
Well, he was very
all my emails, I
calculated.
didn't know any of it.
Yeah. I remember having to like fucking
But he
Like,
needs
send
to
it all
be
to me.
yeah, I had to
by
like
major
fucking,
And then I didn't have it memorized, and I had to always go back through our messages and find
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I was.
cautiously.
dude, I had caps
It
lock
was
on the whole
maddening
time.
deliberation.
Kissinger thinks that
probably
this
why.
cult of the tough guy is what led to Watergate.
try all
That
these
Nixon issued
Bro, Watergate. Nixon didn't even know that Watergate was gonna happen.
one of his exuberant orders, and it was carried out.
The essence of Watergate was best summed up for me by Bryce Harlow, who was a wise old man around Washington. And he said, some fool went into the Oval Office and did what he was told.
Nixon kept Kissinger and just about everyone else in the White House off balance, and Watergate only made things worse. But then Gerald Ford became president and healed the nation overnight.
The combination of Vietnam and Watergate was as low
I don't even know if I
as
can download
America
anything on
could
the
get.
guest.
And I believe that President
You're
Ford,
gonna have to figure out how to.
a simple man from Grand Rapids, came in and restored.
I think I'm gonna move up into America
Amidst the scandal and all
and then move down into here because my
to maintain a
Shitty
private
thing is I wanted
family
to- I
life,
want my own
often
fucking
taking
speed
his
clips on
children
here
from his
that I
first
want.
marriage,
down into
Elizabeth
SA.
and David, along with him on his foreign policy missions.
hopefully.
And now, at age 75,
Don't you address.
one of his favorite things to do is
Is he
play
gonna
with his
move to here? Is he a noob or is he not?
He keeps up his close ties to his family. In fact, that's why the once powerful force on the world stage agreed to do it.
He is. He's a fucking noob. He's gonna fight over fucking Australia.
He's doing a favor for his son David, a Hollywood executive,
Night
by
Hero
appearing on one of his TV sitcoms.
For my family, I'll do anything.
The author of 12 books and Nobel laureate has only one line to deliver. Yet even here, he negotiates.
This doesn't make any sense to me.
He's also teaching again. The professor who used to teach at Harvard now goes back to poor neighborhoods in New York, like the one he grew up in, to teach inner city kids. Today, he's at Cardinal Hayes High School in the South Bronx.
When I came to the United States, I was 15 years old, and we had 3 rooms, and we had 2 people in each room. So you probably know some of these conditions.
This is where you lived. This is the apartment you moved into very soon after you got to the United States.
In 38.
Your mother,
My mother would never leave it.
His father had been a teacher, but he says his mother was the most important person in his life.
a couple of years ago, she fell and went into a coma.
I wonder if I can connect
Yes. In fact, they wanted to cut off her life support system.
But Kissinger wouldn't let them, telling the doctors, "You don't know my mother."
Huh?
Sure enough,
3 days later, she came to.
Already, bro?
Respirator down her throat, so she couldn't talk. So she wrote, "Where am I?" We told her. "What
Oh,
time
he's
is it?"
offline. That's why.
What time is it? And she wrote, "I have a dental appointment at 11, and if you don't cancel it, I'll have to pay for it." and
Mom's back.
she was back.
Well, you said once that everything that you achieved, you owe to your mother.
Well, I achieved most of my life to her because she made us come here. She made us emigrate.
he emigrated with his parents and brother to America in 1938 as Heinz Kissinger, a 15-year-old Jewish refugee from Nazi Germany.
When you were a young man, a young boy in Germany, kids often beat you up walking down the street. Then you moved here into this neighborhood. What was that like, that change?
Well, at first, when I saw children come towards me, other children, I crossed the street.
Afraid they were going to beat you up.
Exactly. And then I suddenly realized this is America. This won't happen to you here.
In Kissinger's early years in the White House, President Nixon told him not to hold news briefings because his accent wouldn't play in Peoria.
So
Huh?
how come in all these years you've never lost your
Is
accent?
that unless you click on your name?
Oh yeah.
Well, my brother has because he's the Kissinger who listened.
But Kissinger, who didn't listen, became one of the most forceful and controversial voices in the history of U.S. foreign policy. Along with Richard Nixon, he opened relations with Communist China. At the height of the Cold War, slowed the arms race with the Soviet Union, and later paved the way for peace between Egypt and Israel.
I don't stand on protocol. If you'll just call me Excellency, we'll begin.
Kissinger courted the media and skillfully used them to move negotiations along. He became history's
Red's gonna be out
first
soon.
Celebrity Secretary of State.
Henry Kissinger, you are still probably, today even, one of the most famous men in the world. It's true. Recognized everywhere. It wasn't long before you came in the Nixon White House that you were, I hope you're not insulted by this, but kind of like a nerdy professor at Harvard. Egghead.
That's true.
Especially for what I'm
Power has a certain attraction, disparity.
Is power an aphrodisiac?
Yes, I think it is.
He was in the limelight and
Oh,
got
yeah,
so
for
much
sure.
publicity, he often upstaged and thereby irked Nixon, especially when Time magazine made the president's assistant co-man of the year. When Kissinger heard of the decision, he says he was horrified and called the editor 5 times.
And begged him, which I'm sure had never happened in the history of time, to take me off the cover and make Nixon Soul Man of the Year.
The story will continue after this.
I don't know why the fuck he did that. That was a dumb move.
Kissinger is generally regarded as a brilliant strategist who had the idea that he could shuffle the cards to the advantage of the United States. But his critics say he was too secretive, and that while he understood the use of power, his approach to diplomacy gave short shrift to human rights and democratic ideals.
You know, your son told us that your approach to diplomacy, your emphasis on balance of power, came from your experiences in Nazi Germany.
So many different variations of it.
My son wasn't alive then.
Yeah, but he knows you pretty well, and this is his analysis.
I'm going to ground it.
No, you're not going to ground him.
I don't think it's as simple as that I saw disintegration of order, then I go around the world,
The hint, school
and all I
password.
want is order, never mind what it
That's the
does to
hint.
human being, which is the way some of my critics put
Couldn't
the
have
case.
picked a better hint.
That just isn't true.
Something a little
Another
more deep
thing his
about it.
critics say is that he prolonged the Vietnam War unnecessarily.
There was an opportunity for us to get out of the war in Vietnam in 1969.
Yeah.
Absolute nonsense.
Well, there were terms on the table, and you chose not to get out in 69.
The terms on the table in 69 were the terms that had always been on the table. The offer of
Damn
surrender
it.
was always open to us.
I got
4
shit
years
cards.
later, we continued to fight. We lost 20,000 more Americans plus. We fled from the rooftop of the embassy
No, that
in
wasn't
total
true. No.
humiliation.
In 1975, U.S. Marines evacuated the remaining Americans and as many South Vietnamese allies as possible in a frantic, last-minute escape that he blames on terrorists for slashing aid to South Vietnam.
Certainly, if you cut somebody off from all aid, the end is going to be terrible.
And with some bitterness, he also blames the anti-war movement, the establishment, and the media, never himself, for the way the war ended.
It ended as it ended because America tore itself apart domestically. The government has a certain responsibility for this, but the protesters to this day have never admitted the slightest fallibility in their
Why didn't he go down?
the matter, the viciousness with which these attacks were conducted, and the manner in which the war ended is a reflection on our domestic division, and not about the original judgments that were made.
The secret bombing of Cambodia. Do you regret this today?
No,
After what happened in Cambodia?
but what happened in Cambodia?
The secret bombing of Cambodia.
Kissinger expanded the Vietnam War into neighboring Cambodia to wipe out enemy sanctuaries.
Oh.
But the mission failed and the Cambodian government collapsed. Kissinger's critics say
Makes
that
sense.
paved the way for Pol Pot and his slaughter of 1 million Cambodians.
I do not accept the proposition that you can base 4 divisions on the soil of a country, kill 500 Americans a week, and that the United States cannot react to this because 6 years down the road, some intellectuals can construct a theory by which anything can happen after that day is due to that event. So I think the people who cut off aid to Cambodia, which was destabilizable, have a lot more to answer for.
It's been 22 years since he left public office, but he admits the criticism still stings.
I'm gonna cut this part out.
Overall, he thinks his policies were the right ones, and that he helped create a safer and freer world.
Would like to change or invest?
Are you asking me whether I would change anything that I've done? You're asking the wrong person. Let me tell you. I would love to have an answer where I could say, if I only had done this one thing differently, then everyone would think I
check it.
But the fact is,
I'm here to flex my intellect, gonna change the game straight intercept. I must confess that I know I'm not the best, but the flow so foul, someone call the ref. I came in the game just to make a mess, make a wreck. You haven't even seen a check, like the Nikes on my feet, you better take a step. Unlike the rest, I don't fake the flex, I don't check the text, you get left on red. I'm not needing a hand, I'm breaking a leg.
Question.
Why you not leaving your
Would
bed?
you build a
Fuck
website
everything
for a major brand with more than 200 million users using Wix?
Well,
the red, riding the field like a sled. The shell is finally shed. I'm an insomniac, built like a computer Mac. Got him looking back.
Damn, he was 100. He looked fairly young for 100 though. He does look like a Jew though.
you know,
Was it? Yeah.
Oh, motherfucker.
a certain serenity,
Yeah, that was my angry one.
because you can have no ambitions for the future. So you
I'm doing this beat.
have to do the right thing. But you can damage yourself.
I only have like this smaller.
Is that the biggest pleasure of getting old? That inner freedom that you just described?
No, because with getting very old, you acquire a lot. It's like becoming a second-hand car
Yeah.
with a lot of breakdowns.
Shoot my shot like an
But
AK,
in the
Mayday. She
overall,
only wanna talk on a payday. Hey babe, why don't you come a little bit my way?
some concerns about
Yeah, AKA she
how you act
shoot my shot like an
might
AK,
affect
Mayday. She
your
only wanna talk on a payday. Hey babe, I just can't remember what I wrote because for some reason, like that other one, I can close, and YouTube will still be like up, so I can like look at my lyrics.
The US State Department has calculated that Henry Kissinger flew 565,000 miles and visited 213 countries during his time as US Secretary of State alone. He met Mao Zedong and Deng Xiaoping, went boar hunting with Brezhnev. He met Golda Meir and Sadat, the Saudi king and the Iranian Shah, Indira Gandhi and the
Oh,
Pope.
here's a song I feel like you would fuck with.
He was the inventor of shuttle diplomacy to end crises and wars through personal meetings, even
I feel like
with
this is right
autocrats.
up your alley.
You became famous as a politician for the idea of realpolitik. That's a very pragmatic approach of politics. In the biography of Niall Ferguson about you, he calls you an idealist. That's the title.
Idealist?
Are you an idealist?
I'm an idealist who believes, however, that ideals have to be related to practical possibilities, or that practical actions have to be inspired by ideals, but that you cannot get from where you are to your ideals in one step. And therefore, I believe today, if one wants to solve the problems of this world, that one has to be inspired by visions. And in politics, I believe that societies that permit this possibility
Oh, you cunt.
are the right societies. And are the
You honestly
ones
made it
that
easier
I
for me, so that's good.
attempt to encourage. Sometimes they have to go through stages of complicated decisions, but they must never lose their sense of freedom.
Time and again, he has also been to Germany, even with his parents, the homeland from which they had to flee as Jews, the Nazis, and with which he nevertheless made his peace, even though relatives were murdered
Stupid.
in the Holocaust. How did he manage to do so? We also talked to Henry Kissinger about this in a very personal interview at his country home in Connecticut, almost 3 hours from New York. Henry, we wanted to speak about Germany today. Let me ask you the first question to your childhood. And if
Bro, these guys are rookies for sure.
Ask the question in German, and I would ask you to answer the question in German. Was ist das erste Bild aus deiner Kindheit? Was ist deine erste Erinnerung deines Lebens?
Das erste Bild ist ein Gefühl der Festigkeit, der Stabilität und eines normalen Lebens zwischen dem Haus in Fürth, wo ich aufgewachsen bin, und das Haus meiner Großeltern in Nordhausen, wo ich auf Ferien ging.
What was the happiest moment of your childhood that you remember?
I was 8 years old.
Bro, stop attacking.
And so before he came to power, I lived a satisfied and it didn't live its high points of happiness were at family occasions or at Watchin Spielvereinigung Fürth. I would say those were the happiest moments of my life.
And do you recall any pivotal moment when you first sensed the threats of the Nazi regime and aggression against Jews and against yourself?
It didn't happen for me as a child that way. The middle-class people who were my father's acquaintances and my family's acquaintances, whom I saw at my house, all had the view that Hitler would never come to power. And so
damn,
I did not feel particularly
you got him.
threatened.
He only got one card though, so.
Did, but in our family, and I think in all of the middle-class families, you didn't involve children in political activities or in political concerns.
Tim Shee's net worth is up to $260 million, and official records show he took his business to the Cayman Islands, where fraudsters go to skip out on paying taxes. No wonder they call him Shady Shee.
What does your video sound like? Go to artlist.io and get the best music and sound effects for your videos. This is not the real world. This is your creation.
It was left to the parents. After Hitler came to power, it changed dramatically. The people we had before seen in the streets were now in the government. And my father was dismissed from the gymnasium at which he taught, and from then on, and then Hitler Youth kids could beat us up in the street as other children up. And that's when life became different.
Do you recall any scenes at school where you've been bullied or where simply violence was applied to you by Nazis?
No, usually what happened, I was excluded from the gymnasium, and they created a school, or there existed a Jewish school, so all my schoolmates were Jewish, since Jews were no longer permitted to be either in public schools or in gymnasiums. So I experienced being attacked on the streets by Hitler Youth people. But one has to say that in the first phase of the Nazi period, the police was neutral. That is, they attempted to avoid such attacks. But the whole atmosphere as you may remember, was extremely hostile, with signs everywhere, Jews are not welcome here, Juden sind hier unerwünscht. So, a strong segregation started.
Damn. He might be able to take out
German civilian
Blue.
friends. There was only one family that remained friendly to us in Leutershausen.
Henry, you left Germany in '38 with your parents. You went to America. You came back during the war. After the war, you liberated a concentration camp, Ahlem, and you wrote a text about a conversation that you had with a concentration camp prisoner. Could you describe that scene and why that was such
I don't get what he's doing. Oh, he took out Orange. Okay.
I was shocked.
I was confused.
To the core of my being by what I saw in the concentration camp. I had heard it about concentration camps, and I knew they were not vacation resorts, but the degree of degradation of human beings.
And now he's setting up to take
I saw there
Blue,
was
which I might.
beyond any
I don't think I'm gonna be able to take Blue. Fuck.
I couldn't believe that human beings
Oh no, he's not.
operate under such inhuman circumstances. And there was one prisoner, his name was Salma, and I talked to him, and it broke my heart. He was a young man who had been thrown into this experience. And I wrote an article about him, really for my internal use. And it was published later in books.
Why was the conversation so kind of life-changing almost for you? Could you describe that? What did you feel in that moment, and did it have any impact also on your future life as a politician?
What made the conversation so special is that here was a person who had lived a normal life and was degraded to a point. These people looked like walking skeletons. They were malnutrition in an extreme way. And I told this man that he could be free now. And it was almost incomprehensible to him what that meant practically. And I followed his life later. He became, he achieved a life on the West Coast. And there was once a reunion of this concentration camp group at which I spoke. This was in the United States. But I came from a rich country with a military unit, and the contrast between his life and my life. I took freedom for granted, and for him, freedom was something almost inconceivable.
Is it fair to say that you since then dedicated your life to freedom?
I have dedicated my life to freedom in the sense of order and stability, and to encourage societies to develop in that atmosphere.
Despite the Holocaust and the fact that so many family members of the Kissingers got killed by the Nazis, you came back to Germany without any feeling of revenge. Why did you want to reconcile with Germany, and what enabled you to do so after all what has happened?
Well, I have to say, in the early period, in the first months of occupation, I was not free of that feeling of revenge. But
Damn it, he's got it. He's won.
But after a month or two, when I saw the suffering that Germany was undergoing, I came to the conviction.
I wish that I would have got that one, but no.
And that actually, as I got to know more about German history, Hitler was a unique event in German history. I thought that the best service I could render was to bring about reconciliation with Germany and to help those in Germany who had a more positive view
I have huge regard for the leaders and people who built the current Germany.
Nevertheless, the current events in Germany with regard to the rise of right-wing populism are very worrying. The AfD, this very right-wing party in Germany, is in East Germany already in all polls the strongest and biggest party, and is gaining incredible support in large parts of the population for a very nationalist, isolationist direction.
I think that would be, if Germany goes in that direction, it would be very unfortunate for Europe and for international order, but also for the idea of living as free societies.
But do you have any explanation why that is possible in a post-war Germany in the 21st century?
There are, of course, many grievances that develop when existing conditions are being changed.
I didn't know that this was gonna...
issues to adjust to.
For generations, we've been farming out here. We look out for each other and we keep our word. But like much of Montana, it's changing. Folks in Washington and some folks moving here don't get it or even care. I may not look like the other senators, but I'm defending our way of life with all I've got.
Quick question for you. What do bad breath and your poop have in common? Researchers estimate that over 80 million Americans suffer from chronic halitosis, or bad breath. At least 99% of everyone else has dragon breath in the morning. Each year...
How I lived.
60 Minutes Rewind.
If, as Douglas MacArthur said, old soldiers never die, they just fade away.
In her book and in this last debate, she talks about getting the approval or the support or the mentoring of Henry Kissinger. Now, I find it rather amazing because I happen to believe that Henry Kissinger was one of the most destructive secretaries of state in the modern history of this country.
I think he was
I am proud to say that Henry Kissinger is not my friend. I will not take advice from Henry Kissinger. And in
Wow,
fact,
you're both
Kissinger's
Jews.
actions in Cambodia, when the United States...
Yeah, Cambodia was pretty fucked, but... Which one am I?
Bombed that country, overthrew Prince Sihanouk, created the instability for Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge to come in, who then butchered some 3 million innocent people, one of the worst genocides in the history of the world. So count me in as somebody who will not be listening to Henry Kissinger.
This tense exchange between Senator Bernie Sanders and Secretary Hillary Clinton received a fair amount of media attention during the 2016 Democratic primaries. Sanders denounced former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger for his actions in Cambodia, in stark contrast to the traditional view of Kissinger as an American hero, patriot, and diplomat emeritus. In 1970, Kissinger opened back channels between the United States and China, ultimately resulting in the establishment of formal diplomatic relations in 1972. The left praised Kissinger for his surprising diplomacy with a communist state during the Cold War, and the right praised him for achieving his secondary goal, driving a wedge between China and the Soviet Union, diminishing the latter's attempts to further its influence in Asia. Kissinger's outreach to China was, in fact, in service of capitalism. Due to this Cold War diplomacy and other affairs throughout his career, Kissinger gained a lifelong status as an advisor to future presidents. Kissinger urged President Bill Clinton to focus on NAFTA instead of healthcare. Kissinger was a secret consultant to the George W. Bush administration, once urging the expansion of the war on terror. Of this, Kissinger once stated, "Because Afghanistan was not enough, and we need to humiliate them." In 2016, the Barack Obama administration honored Kissinger with an awards ceremony where he received a Distinguished Public Service Medal. Until the final months of the Donald Trump administration, Kissinger served on the Defense Policy Board, an influential group of experts advising top Pentagon officials. Kissinger, 98 years old, has only now disappeared into the background and has no more influence on United States foreign policy, as far as we know. The traditional view of Kissinger has been held together through normalization of his presence and advice throughout the presidential administrations. Speaking ill of Kissinger comes from the media, from fact-checkers, from firebrand politicians with nothing to lose, but never from the top. It is well understood, but never openly acknowledged by the President, that Henry Kissinger is a war criminal. While United States foreign policy has been responsible for a tremendous amount of suffering and clandestine crimes over the past century, even without Kissinger's direct involvement, his contributions to this suffering are staggering in amount and scale. According to an estimate by the nation, though an exact number may never be known,
Figure what out?
Business, Jace. Keep streaming.
When
You leaving, babe?
colossal figures,
Alright, I
several
love you.
questions come to mind. What did Kissinger do to cause this much
Have a good day at work.
Later, with irrefutable evidence now collected, why won't anyone do anything about it? Why are American politicians with blood on their hands never tried as war criminals in international courts? Henry Kissinger had reason to be paranoid, trauma that contributed to his cynical view of the truth and of humanity, and a career built upon the necessity of suspicion. In 1938, when Kissinger was only 15, he and his family fled Germany to escape persecution. In 1943, Kissinger, like so many other young men of that era, was drafted by the United States to fight in World War II. His knowledge of Germany and his academic studies up to that point allowed him to join military intelligence. He was charged with identifying, arresting, and interrogating German officers, as well as securing confidential informants. According to Greg Grandin, author of Kissinger's Shadow, the tension between fact and truth was not an abstract question for Kissinger. It was the stuff of life and death. In 1955, Kissinger joined the National Security Council's Operations Coordinating Board. He grew to prominence through a series of books that influenced foreign policy. In his 1957 book, Nuclear Weapons and Foreign Policy, Kissinger advocated the use of nuclear weapons in warfare. In his 1960 book, The Necessity of Choice, Kissinger helped popularize the Cold War term missile gap. These writings influenced policy in the Kennedy administration and encouraged the creation of enough nuclear weapons to wipe out mankind many times over. Proliferation also resulted in a series of close calls over the years that nearly did just that. On March 31st, 1968, with a low approval rating due to the war in Vietnam, President Lyndon B. Johnson appeared on national television and announced that he was partially halting the bombing of Vietnam and that he would not run for re-election. Not long after that, Kissinger contacted a Richard Nixon campaign aide, pledging fealty to Nixon and stating that he would do anything to help him win the presidency. This blanket pledge of anything was soon put to the test. That same year, Kissinger helped Nixon covertly sabotage the Paris peace talks. The goal of the peace talks was to end a devastating conflict that had already killed countless Americans and Vietnamese. The goal of Kissinger and Nixon was to prevent Hubert Humphrey and the Democratic Party from ending an unpopular war ahead of an election. Nixon, through Kissinger, privately assured the South Vietnamese that an incoming Republican administration would offer them a better deal than the Democrats. By sabotaging the peace talks, Kissinger was able to sabotage Humphrey's electoral strategy as well. The North Vietnamese wanted the war to end, but every time the North side came close to an agreement, the US-backed South Vietnamese suddenly increased their own demands, making peace impossible. The South Vietnamese withdrew from the talks on the eve of the election. President Johnson learned this because the CIA had bugged the office of the South Vietnamese president, and the FBI had bugged the South Vietnamese embassy. CIA recordings and phone calls confirmed this long-suspected rumor.
And they ought to be doing this. This is treason. I know this. That they're contacting a foreign power in the middle of a war.
After speaking to that Republican, Johnson called Nixon and confronted him about this treasonous act, but was unwilling to go public as it would reveal how he learned of it in the first place. Kissinger tried to rewrite history for the victor, Richard Nixon, painting Humphrey and his emissaries as failures for even attempting diplomacy against such an implacable enemy, and by painting the war in Vietnam not the disastrous anti-communist quagmire that it was, but as an inevitability that they simply had to meet. Throughout the conflict in Vietnam and neighboring nations, the belligerents varied in their attitudes. Some were reluctant participants drafted into service or ordered to commit questionable acts under the mistaken belief that there was no alternative. But Kissinger cannot be given such a defense. He knew that peace was an alternative because he himself helped sabotage that peace. This lack of alibi should be taken into consideration when learning about atrocities in Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia with his fingerprints on them. The nations of Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia formed a region commonly called Indochina, but the three nations' involvement during the Vietnam War could not be more different. Laos and Cambodia were effectively neutral during the conflict, but both the North Vietnamese and the United States used these territories, often covertly, without the explicit authorization of said nations. However, the manner in which these territories were exploited were quite different. For example, the North Vietnamese used Laotian and Cambodian territory as part of their supply lines. The United States, on the other hand, exploited Laos and Cambodia by carpet bombing their civilians, men, women, and children, in hopes of also striking any unsuspecting North Vietnamese who happened to be there. The Nixon administration called this hot pursuit, a justification for tremendous intentional civilian casualties. While a great many atrocities were committed by United States forces within Indochina, the actions masterminded by Henry Kissinger were among the worst. During the first week of the
I wish I could tell this guy to get his men out of my...
Kissinger himself ordered the Pentagon to present a classified briefing on bombing options. Only weeks later, the United States began secretly bombing Cambodia. The political argument against the bombing was self-evident. The United States was not at war with Cambodia. The total victims of the Cambodia bombings are disputed, partially because different historians and government officials use different criteria.
Are they going to attack me?
By the United States, and most studies do not include victims of U.S. involvement with the Khmer Rouge. But low estimates, such as in the Tufts University study, suggest approximately 250,000 dead, but the highest estimates reach 600,000. Again, this is only for these bombings, not the conflict across Indochina in total or the Khmer Rouge genocide. There were also significant casualties in Laos.
What are you guys trying to do here?
Secretly beginning in 1964
with
and
this?
escalated during the Nixon administration. So secret were these bombings that many in the United States Congress were unaware of it until 1970. Kissinger made a statement to the press justifying these bombings by claiming that at least American servicemen were not being killed, only Laotians and Vietnamese hiding in Laos. This statement, while morally
Red was
horrendous,
set up
was
pretty
also
well.
untrue. The Pentagon revealed that American servicemen had been killed in Laos during the Nixon administration. These bombings were conducted without authorization by Congress and focused heavily on civilian areas in hopes of striking secret North Vietnamese bases. Though neutral, Laos suffered as many as 115,000 casualties, almost exclusively civilian. In addition to Kissinger's initial sabotage of the peace process in 1968, he warned the Nixon administration against suing for peace once again in 1970, explaining that anything resembling surrender could negatively affect Nixon's chances in the 1972 presidential election. In other words, the war in Vietnam was extended year after year for political reasons, first to bring Nixon to power, then again to keep him there. Estimates of casualties in Indochina between 1954 to 1975 vary, partly for political reasons and partly because of the challenge of calculating civilian deaths among massive bombing campaigns. Putting it all together is no small task. Among the most credible and widely sourced estimates comes from Professor Rudolph Joseph Rummel of Yale. In his study, casualties were as high as 3,595,000, including Americans, Vietnamese, Cambodians, and Laotians, both servicemen and civilians. These numbers are staggering, but this total could have been significantly lower without the sabotage and machinations of Henry Kissinger. Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos are the most well-known atrocities connected to Kissinger, but there are other crimes that must be addressed. In late 1970, the Pakistani military elite had permitted the first open elections for a decade. The vote was won by Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the leader of the Bengali Awami League. The National Assembly was scheduled to meet on the 3rd of March 1971, but General Khan, leader of the ongoing military regime, refused a peaceful transition. On March 25th, the Pakistani army struck at the Bengali capital of Dhaka and massacred Rahman's supporters. Kissinger, believing General Khan would be more supportive of United States economic interests than Rahman, sent military aid to assist in the genocide. Estimates for the total dead vary due to the chaos, the expulsion of the foreign press, and political interests, but according to the book Kissinger's Shadow, approximately 500,000 were counted among the dead, hundreds of thousands of women abused, and millions displaced from their homes. Allegedly, Nixon privately had concerns that the slaughter was comparable to the Holocaust, but Kissinger told him not to worry. In 1974, East Timor formed a post-colonial leftist government. The movement was known as the Front for the Liberation of East Timor. Under the pretext of anti-communism, East Timor's neighbor, Indonesia, invaded in an obvious power grab in 1975. Immediately before the invasion, Henry Kissinger, then Secretary of State under President Gerald Ford, met with the leaders of Indonesia. The United States supplied Indonesia with the necessary military equipment for the invasion, in hopes of expelling the East Timor government and massacring a population that was not friendly to U.S. economic interests. Civilian deaths during this invasion were enormous. The United Nations concluded that the number of East Timorese who died from combat or famine during the occupation could be as high as 202,000, approximately one-third of their entire population. These incidents and massacres are only a sampling of United States war crimes in which Henry Kissinger was involved. He and Nixon plotted to overthrow Chilean President Salvador Allende. The list goes on and on. Nearly everything stated about Kissinger's involvement in Cambodia, his role in extending the Vietnam War by sabotaging the peace talks, and other crimes are widely known, mostly through first-hand accounts, declassified documents, audio from the CIA and FBI, investigative journalism, and decades of research. The facts are no longer in dispute, only perspective. War hawks excuse the most indefensible actions, and Kissinger is put on a pedestal for his role rather than put on trial for war crimes. Why is that? War crimes are
I'm gonna take purple out.
International law and international treaties, such as the Geneva Conventions. War crimes are most commonly defined by actions like intentional slaughter of innocents and torture. So, given the mountain of evidence, countless civilian deaths, and decades of unaccountable war crimes, why hasn't Henry Kissinger been charged through some international court, or extradited to a nation that he victimized? For that matter, why haven't so many other war criminals living in the United States been tried? International prosecution of Henry Kissinger for war crimes requires a power dynamic which does not exist. The United States is a permanent
Unless if
member of the United Nations, granting them
purple does it first. I mean, not purple, red does it first.
Military bases all over the world. The U.S. owns a considerable amount of the world's wealth and therefore has controlling interests in a great many trade deals. The U.S. has significant sway over the International Monetary Fund and World Bank. In short, the United States of America is simply not on equal footing with the rest of the world. If, say, Laos wanted to extradite Henry Kissinger, with what could Laos threaten the United States? War? Trade? Allies? If, say, a number of powerful nations pressured the United States to extradite a war criminal, what could they actually do if the U.S. says no? Cut off trade? That would significantly damage the economies of these hypothetical powerful nations. Go to war? That probably would not end well for them, and frankly, it would not be proportional to punishing one man. There is simply no mechanism in which other nations can pressure the United States to do something it does not want to do. Maybe on paper, sure, treaties exist, but not in reality. So, why does the United States want to protect its war criminals anyway? What does the United States gain by allowing Henry Kissinger and so many others to be safe and comfortable? Put simply, allowing Kissinger to be tried in an international court or allowing him to be extradited would not suit U.S. interests. If Kissinger were tried, the details of the trial would be embarrassing to the United States, and if Kissinger were convicted, it would open the door for future war crimes trials. It would prevent the United States from pursuing its policy of military interventionism that has, for a long time, furthered its ultimate goal of global supremacy. If Kissinger were convicted, who would be next? Former President George W. Bush? Perhaps every living president, for that matter? In order to maintain its global economic goals, the United States would sooner withdraw from an international treaty than help convict its war criminals, and it has. In 2002, for example, the United States effectively withdrew from the treaty that established the International Criminal Court. In 2018, the United States withdrew from the United Nations International Court of Justice. Some treaties end up being more like suggestions for the United States. When Henry Kissinger dies, the articles and obituaries and tributes will most likely call him a controversial figure and balance the millions who died through his actions and policies with the trade deals with China and his friendships with heads of state, as if this tips the scales of this oh-so-complicated man. Kissinger has written his own history. The United States
I thought I might have been able to get it, but I couldn't.
Will codify this history by mourning his passing one day. When he dies, anyone who points out that these tributes are mourning a war criminal will be met with a clucking of tongues and a "how dare you disrespect the dead," as if the civility of the discourse is somehow more important than the truth, more important than justice.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. Saturday will be the 100th birthday of Henry Kissinger. He served as National Security Advisor and Secretary of State in the Nixon and Ford administrations. Today we look at Kissinger's ongoing influence on the national security state as the United States engages in declared and undeclared wars around the world. Human rights advocates consider Kissinger a war criminal who has escaped accountability. We begin with a damning new investigation by The Intercept on the secret U.S. bombing of Cambodia that killed as many as 150,000 civilians that Kissinger authorized during the U.S. war in Vietnam. Reporter Nick Turse has revealed unreported mass killings after examining formerly classified U.S. military documents and traveling to 12 remote Cambodian villages to interview more than 75 witnesses and survivors of U.S. attacks. With this new piece, Nick Turse also publishes transcripts of Kissinger's phone calls that show his key role in Cambodia and CIA records connecting Kissinger's actions to the growth of Cambodia's Khmer Rouge, the regime that massacred 2 million people from 1975 to 1979. Nick Turse is a contributing writer for The Intercept. His books include Kill Anything That Moves, The Real American War in Vietnam. His news story is headlined Blood on His Hands. Survivors of Kissinger's secret war in Cambodia reveal unreported mass killings. Nick Turse, welcome back to Democracy Now! Why don't you lay out the
Bro, I might be able to get fucking...
and its most stunning conclusion, what you were most shocked by in this extended...
I don't want to, though.
Thank you so much for having me on. You know, I think the key takeaway of this package of articles is that Henry Kissinger is responsible for more civilian deaths in Cambodia than was previously known, according to this exclusive archive of U.S. military documents that I assembled, and also interviews with Cambodian witnesses and survivors, as well as Americans who witnessed or took part in these attacks. The archive offers previously unpublished, unreported, and also underappreciated evidence of hundreds of civilian casualties that were kept secret during the U.S. war in Cambodia, most of them from 1969 to 1973, the years that Henry Kissinger presided over. And these remain almost entirely unknown to the American people today. A key to this recording was previously unpublished interviews with more than 75 Cambodian witnesses and survivors of U.S. military attacks, and speaking with them revealed new details about the long-term trauma borne by survivors of the American war there. So taken together, this adds to the list of killings and crimes that Henry Kissinger should, even at this very late date in his life, be asked to answer for.
And Nick, could you talk a little bit about the military documents you found? In your articles, I was quite surprised to discover, although I guess it's been reported previously, that Kissinger himself was taping or transcribing conversations that he had with the president and other officials about the war in Cambodia.
And now, I'm not going to attack, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to go...
What really laid him low is in the Watergate scandal, but most people don't realize that Kissinger was also taping all his phone conversations, and he had a group of aides that transcribed these. And through these transcripts, you can see Kissinger's how hands-on he was with his policies in Cambodia, and how you can see him relaying orders from Nixon. Some White House officials that I spoke with who were privy to these conversations at the time were often worried that President Nixon was drunk during some of these conversations. He was slurring his words and giving orders to, in one case that I focus on, attack anything, or it was to send anything that flies on anything that moves in Cambodia. Basically, attack everything with planes and helicopter gunships. And you can see the order come right from Nixon.
I hope that they understood what I meant by that.
And then I was able to show that you could see the palpable effects in the field, that just after these orders came down, helicopter attacks on Cambodia went sky high. They tripled over the course of a month after this call. So you could really see the direct effects of Kissinger in the White House and how it affected Cambodians on the ground.
I want to start with your article, how you start your article in Cambodia. At the end of a dusty path snaking through rice paddies lives a woman who survived multiple U.S. airstrikes as a child. Round-faced and just over 5 feet tall in plastic sandals, Ms. Lauren lost an older brother to a helicopter gunship attack and an uncle and cousins to artillery fire. For decades, one question haunted her. I still wonder why those aircraft always attacked in this area. Why did they drop bombs here? Can you elaborate on this? And I want to say, for our radio listeners, for television, we're showing photographs that you have, an incredible gold mine of photographs that you took when you made these visits. Talk about these details, the specific stories.
Yes, Ms. Lauren's story and the suffering that she endured, the trauma that she's lived with all these years, like so many of the stories that I heard in Cambodia, really stuck with me. And and her question was one that I heard again and again. Cambodian villagers in these remote.
Come on, please do this for me.
No idea why they were
I'm waiting on you.
American aircraft just started appearing overhead. They had no frame of reference for why this was happening. They didn't understand it, but they soon came to fear these machines, and for years on end, they were terrorized by them. I actually took her question to Henry Kissinger when I tried to confront him with questions for this article, and I asked him to answer the question that she had asked me: why did they attack here? And Kissinger responded with sarcasm, anger, and stomped off. He was able to beat an easy retreat and save himself from this questioning, but Cambodians like Ms. Lauren didn't have any sort of easy means of escape. There was another village that I visited, and I have some photographs from that as well. These were taken by my wife, Pam Terse, who reported this along with me. And there was a village that was mentioned in U.S. documents. They mentioned an attack on May 1st, 1970. A helicopter circled a Cambodian village. The Americans had a phonetic spelling of it called Morong, but there was no village in Cambodia called Morong. It's not a Cambodian name, but there was one called Morong on the border. And we set about trying to find it. We got close. We spent 2 days driving around local roads asking for directions. We finally turned off the highway onto a red dirt track that cut through some lush farmland. It dead-ended with a footpath, and it took us into this village. I quickly found the village chief, and I read him the excerpt from the documents that during this attack, 12 villagers were killed, 5 were wounded. This is from U.S. records. And after the assault, survivors fled their village, and they went to another one called Kontut. So when I asked him about this particular attack, it was like many Cambodian villages that I visited.
Bro, this guy needs to fuck off.
He endured so many airstrikes over the years, he couldn't remember one single strike. But when he thought about the date, he told me that's right. He gestured toward an area at the edge of the village and said they attacked intensely at that time, and then everyone here fled for Kontut. So I knew that we had the right place. And this village,
I'm gonna get taken out because my fucking
his mother, his father, his grandfather, a nephew,
partners suck. Because my alliances suck.
He and several others,
and they can't understand I need him to get that out of there.
As he talked to me, his eyes reddened and then they went vacant, and he sunk to his knees and moved to a far corner of the room, and I let him be, and he eventually returned to the conversation. But this was the type of trauma that I encountered again and again. It had been decades, but this trauma brought by Henry Kissinger's policies.
Damn it, I'm out.
So amazingly fresh and palpable in all of these villages.
And Nick, the U.S. bombing campaign and the war in Cambodia was followed obviously by the rise of the Khmer Rouge and also the genocide that the rest of the world associates more with Cambodia than anything else. I'm wondering, you're reporting, what connection, if any, between this massive bombing campaign for which U.S. officials have never been held responsible and the rise of the Khmer Rouge?
Sure. I mean,
no, I'm not out, but
it's culpable for the genocide in Cambodia and the 2 million deaths. But as you mentioned, it's been long overlooked just how destabilizing the U.S. bombing was.
Maybe I'm out. He might try. He might risk it.
Within their own country, such trauma caused by the U.S. attacks, these relentless attacks, and tremendous quantities of bombs dropped. The Khmer Rouge used all this as a recruiting tool. They went around the villages and said that the only way to make this stop was to join their movement, which before the U.S. bombing was really a small fringe movement of just thousands of people. By the end of the U.S. bombing, the Khmer Rouge numbered 200,000 people. And I mean, the U.S. attacks were the centerpiece of their recruiting drive. And it, unfortunately, it worked all too well. And so, President Nixon and Henry Kissinger certainly played a key role in enabling this genocide happen.
In 2016, during an event at the LBJ Library, Henry Kissinger was asked to respond to those who call him a war criminal.
I think the word war criminal should not be thrown around in the domestic debate. It is hateful. It's a reflection on the people who use it.
As Henry Kissinger turns 100 years old on Saturday, in addition to Nick Turse, who's written this astounding series in The Intercept, headline Blood on His Hands, we're joined by the Pulitzer Prize-winning historian Greg Grandin, author of the book Kissinger's Shadow, The Long Reach of America's Most Controversial Statesman. Greg's latest article is headlined Henry Kissinger, a war criminal still at large at 100. Can you take off from where Nick Turse left off, Greg Grandin, and tell us how, though so many have come under a microscope like Nixon and his whole group in the White House, Kissinger somehow escaped this by the establishment media, though independent media has long been fiercely critical of him. Tell us Kissinger's full story, Greg.
Well, you take a lot more time than we have to go because he gets already 29 years old. I think that what's interesting is that, I mean, Kissinger is a war criminal, but there are lots of war criminals. People who conducted the,
I might be able to still do this.
Held culpable for the destruction of a country and an illegal war. What's interesting is that in some ways the crimes are ongoing. You know, there's just many unexploded ordinances in Laos and Cambodia that are still killing people. So that the crimes are well, not in the past, but they're the present. That said, I think that the best way to think about Kissinger isn't necessarily as a war criminal. I think that in some ways that shuts down debate. Kissinger as a personality is so oversized and eclipses his conduct. It's like Kissinger's life actually has a lot to teach us about how we got to the point where we are. Like, in the way that again, Jeff Sachs talked about this multi-part, never-ending, endless war.
Fuck, is he gonna take me out? You fucking cunt. You fucked me. You fucked me. I was being nice to you and you fucked me.
And everything, but yeah, but I'm keeping that. I am telling you guys that.
The excuses that Kissinger has given for a 5-year-long bond campaign.
I'm just like, yo, I'm telling them.
I could have taken that one out earlier, but
It was to eliminate safe havens. It was not self-defense. This is now
moved on.
taken as
That's
a
it.
common practice. This is
That's their choice to not like you or not. Sorry, she's just like, you just go out there telling them my business, and I was like, this is our business, bitch. I was like, this is
military operations, some we know about, some we don't know about, but as a matter of course, so we don't do it in secret. So Kissinger's trajectory.
he didn't even say good game afterwards. What a dick.
To bomb a country the United States wasn't at war with, to the state we are in now, governed by a national security state, is what I think is most instructive about Kissinger's life and most important about him, other than describing him as a war criminal, which he is.
And Greg, why do you think that he remains such a significant figure? As you mentioned, he escaped all of the scandal of the Nixon years and went on to
I'm
be
set up
a
okay.
influential figure, not only
Here.
in the actual political world, but obviously in the media as well. And he was always referred to almost by the corporate press as a revered figure in American foreign policy and national security.
Yeah, the press loved him, and he was very good at playing the press. Especially, he was very good at weathering Watergate. His fingers were all over. He basically pushed Nixon to set up the plumbers because he was obsessed that Daniel Ellsberg, who released the Pentagon Papers, had information about Cambodia. Cambodia threads through all of this, and Kissinger was instrumental in pushing Nixon to set up the covert operation that went into Ellsberg's psychiatrist's office and went into the Watergate hotel because he wanted to basically take down Ellsberg. And Kissinger survived that basically because he didn't seem like the thugs that Nixon had around him, or, you know, Haldeman and Ehrlichman with the Prussians they were called. And
he's gonna go for
fell for the gravitas that he projected, and they were looking for somebody that they could trust, that they can hang something on and still have faith in the national in the institution of the presidency, the executive branch. And Kissinger was very attuned to this. He played people like Ted Koppel very well. And then what's interesting about Kissinger, though, more than anything, we know about his 8 years in office. He was National Security Director and Secretary of State under Nixon and Ford for a full 8 years. Secretary of State for the last couple of those years.
yeah, that guy's new. He for trying to take that so fast.
Declassified, given his archive DL. But it's what happened after. When he becomes a kind of sage pundit, a bipartisan pundit, Bill Clinton rehabilitates Kissinger as a way of giving him a certain seriousness in foreign policy that as a governor of Arkansas he didn't have. So he rehabilitates him for the Democratic Party. And then Kissinger founds, of course, Kissinger Associates. So he's out of office now for what? 76 to now is, you know, with a half a day, 50 years. And during that time, his Kissinger Associates has been a kind of premier concierge service for the global elite. It's broken. It's basically broken, the privatization of national industries in Latin America, in Eastern Europe, in Russia. He's a key player in all of these movements. We have no information about any of that, right? And it's arguably more consequential in some ways. I mean, maybe not. Maybe I guess the actual war crimes were when he was in office for 8 years. But there is this black hole of his role as a consultant to the global elite during this very consequential moment in which an enormous amount of wealth transferred from the bottom to the top, and Kissinger was deeply involved in that. He helped broker NAFTA, for example. He told Clinton that Clinton had political capital to do only one of two things his first year. You know, either pass Hillary Clinton's national health program, or he could push for NAFTA. And he advised him to push for NAFTA, and Clinton did. And we got NAFTA.
Damn, that motherfucker blocked me off.
A lot about the post-Cold War trajectory of the United States and how we got it.
I wanted to go quickly to the 2016 Democratic presidential debate in Milwaukee when Senator Bernie Sanders criticized his opponent Hillary Clinton's relationship with her fellow former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger and cited Kissinger's role in Cambodia.
In her book and in this last debate, she talked about getting the approval or the support or the mentoring of Henry Kissinger. Now, I find it rather amazing because I happen to believe that Henry Kissinger was one of the most destructive secretaries of state in the modern history of this country. I am proud to say that Henry Kissinger is not my friend. I will not take advice from Henry Kissinger. And in fact, Kissinger's actions in Cambodia, when the United States bombed that country, overthrew Prince Sihanouk, created the instability for Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge to come in, who then butchered some 3 million innocent people, one of the worst genocides in the history of the world. So count me in as somebody who will not be listening to Henry Kissinger.
So that was presidential candidate Bernie Sanders versus presidential candidate Hillary Clinton. And then you have the late celebrity chef, Anthony Bourdain, who once said, once you've been to Cambodia, you'll never stop wanting to beat Henry Kissinger to death with your bare hands. You'll never again be able to open a newspaper and read about that treacherous, prevaricating, murderous scumbag sitting down for a nice chat with Charlie
Damn it!
attending some black tie affair for a new glossy magazine without choking. Witness what Henry did in Cambodia.
Fucking cunt!
Statesmanship, and you'll never understand why he's not sitting in the dock at The Hague next to Milosevic. Now,
why would he have done that?
Anthony Bourdain.
That doesn't even make any fucking sense.
And then Nick Terse.
Yeah, well, again, Cambodia, the centrality of Cambodia in this transitional period of the U.S. national security state and its importance, you know, the human damage and cost and pain and suffering is overwhelming to think about. But more kind of stepping back and thinking about its role in the kind of
what the fuck?
Of U.S. power. One thing we didn't talk about is Kissinger's role in the October surprise of 1968. The New York Times just ran an article more or less confirming Reagan's role in the October surprise regarding the Iranian hostages. But Kissinger, Kissinger in the 1950s and 60s was a Rockefeller Republican. He understood himself as a liberal Republican, and he was shocked when Nixon got the nomination in 1968. He thought his political career was over, but then he reached out to the Nixon campaign.
That was so fucked.
Contacts in the Johnson campaign. I can let you know what's going on with the peace talks in Paris that were hoping to wind down the war and might have given Humphrey the presidency. And Kissinger passed on information that the Nixon campaign then used to scuttle those talks. And then once he was appointed, he was awarded with that by being appointed National Security Advisor. And then once he came into office, he had to figure out a way to restart the peace talks because Nixon promised to end the war. So what can you do? You just scuttle the peace talks. How do you restart them? Well, one of the not the stated justifications, but one of the reasons why he started bombing Cambodia and became obsessed about Cambodia was he was trying to kind of project a certain kind of madman theory to North Vietnamese that the Nixon administration was so crazy they would start bombing Cambodia and maybe this would bring them back to negotiating tables. Of course, it didn't. And the war dragged out, and for another 5 years for no reason. It could have ended in 1968. It could have ended, and millions of lives were lost in Vietnamese. Tens of thousands of lives were lost in the United States, all as a result of this moment, this first October surprise in 1968. And again, Cambodia playing a central role in that history.
I've got to play smart now.
The last word after this massive investigation you've done and documents you've uncovered and people's voices that haven't been heard before.
Yes, and I want to bring it back to the Anthony Bourdain quote and just offer up one piece that I chronicle. This is from the U.S. records. Americans shot up a village with helicopters using machine gun fire rockets, and then South Vietnamese forces and the American officer landed. They began looting this village. An American officer stole a Suzuki motorbike and hauled it onto his helicopter.
The fuck is Purple doing, bro?
A Cambodian girl, maybe 5 years old, was shot and bleeding, lying on the ground. They wanted to take her for medical care, but the officer who dragged the motorbike on board said negative. They were weighed down by the bike and they had no room, and they left this girl there to die. This happened after Henry Kissinger gave that order to anything that flies and anything that moves. So this is Henry Kissinger's legacy, and this is what Anthony Bourdain was talking about.
Intercept reporter Nick Turse will link to your 4-part series, including The Peace, Blood on His Hands, Survivors of Kissinger's Secret War in Cambodia Reveal Unreported Mass Killings. And we want to thank Yale University professor Greg Randon, author of the book Kissinger's Shadow. We'll link to your new article, Henry Kissinger, a War Criminal Still at Large at 100. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez.
Bro, I hate playing with fucking noobs because they just, like, don't know how to play, and then they take you all out. They take you out when you're setting up. But then they're going to lose anyways because they did some dumb shit.
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Former British Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn, Pentagon Papers whistleblower Daniel Ellsberg, and famed linguist and dissident Noam Chomsky joined others earlier this year calling on President Biden to drop. This is Democracy Now!
Much later.
Stop trying to justify what you did. You're not going to be.
The world is ready.
What's she saying now?
Your future at your
She's
fingertips.
just trying to justify
It's time
it.
for you
Like
to
how?
Henry Kissinger, one of the most controversial and powerful figures in American politics, is dead. Kissinger was an American diplomat and political scientist. He served as National Security Advisor and Secretary of State under 2 presidents. And his career is full of a lot. Some laudable achievements, such as normalizing relations with China, but also full of some actions that many call war crimes. Many of you watching are 100% positive that Henry Kissinger is a war criminal.
Ha!
Others might see Kissinger as a
Fucking
brilliant figure who
idiot.
helped the U.S. navigate very uncertain times during the Cold War. I actually met Henry Kissinger once. I was working at a think tank in D.C. where he was a counselor and trustee. And frankly, I didn't glean much about this guy's character in our little meeting. But since then, we've gotten to know him, at least his career. We've studied him and his actions, both the good and the bad. So today, I want to look at this man, Henry Kissinger. I want to look at what he did and evaluate what we can learn from this person who, for better or worse, has played an influential role in how American power is wielded on the global stage.
On this, perhaps the most gentle and graceful.
Damn it, that's not what I wanted.
President Nixon and Mr. Kissinger
As a
unleashed
card.
100,000 tons of bombs.
Henry Kissinger was born on May 27, 1923 in Germany. When he was a teenager, his family left Germany for the United States, fleeing oppression from the Nazis. He went to Harvard and later was drafted into the army during World War II, serving in a counterintelligence role. After the war, he returned to Harvard and pursued a PhD in political science. Kissinger made a name for himself as a political theorist and author. He focused on the role
Oh
of
shit,
weapons
shit,
and the
shit. He might
geopolitics
take
that
me
had
out
emerged after
here.
World War II. He studied a political philosophy called realpolitik, which emphasizes how countries gain
Yes.
power by reacting practically to conflicts and situations, as opposed to based on ideology or values. But from my reading, what made Kissinger powerful was his ability to connect with people, to network in Washington, D.C. That was perhaps his greatest asset, and the thing that kept him close to power. This was later exemplified by the fact that Kissinger served under both Republican and Democratic presidents. You can start to see Kissinger's realpolitik and networking skills in full action well before he ever stepped foot in the White House. According to this archived document from Nixon's chief of staff, early in his career when he was working for the Democratic president LBJ as an advisor on Vietnam, he cozied up to the Democrats' political opponent, Richard Nixon, who was running for president. He cozies up to Nixon and inspires him, has Nixon information about secret Vietnam War peace talks happening in Paris. Nixon could potentially use this information
I was like, do you not hear yourself? Do you not hear how cold
which in
that just
turn
sounded?
would make the Democrats
Like, that
look
was
bad
cold as fuck,
to the
right?
ones in power and help.
That was mean as fuck.
I mean, I kind of get what she's saying.
I get
like,
what she's
like,
saying too. But
obviously, like,
it's still
it would be worse if she broke up with you, like, after you guys were married and shit.
No, I see that. No,
Yeah.
that's total. No, I'm saying how fast she moved on.
Fuck!
That's what's the issue here.
Yeah. Damn it, bro. I just got beat by a bunch of novices and beginners. No wonder that it was being fucky.
She's like, I don't know how to break up with somebody after 5 years. Like, you act like there's a book I should have read on it. Like,
There
no,
probably
like-
is a book.
Yeah, there probably is, but like, you could have set me down
Yeah.
and been like, we need to talk.
For real. Not the way that she did.
The way for Nixon to win the presidency. Now, there's a significant debate on whether or not all of this sort of backroom deal thing had any impact on the peace talks. But what I care
Alright. I need to restart. I wasn't
Henry
paying attention.
Kissinger,
I was
one
getting
of the most
pissed off.
controversial and powerful figures in American politics, is dead. Kissinger was an American diplomat and political scientist. He served as National Security Advisor and Secretary of State under 2 presidents. And his career is full of a lot. Some laudable achievements, such as normalizing relations with China, but also full of some actions that many call war crimes. Many of you watching are 100% positive that Henry Kissinger is a war criminal. Others might see Kissinger as a brilliant leader who helped the U.S. navigate very uncertain times during the Cold War. I actually met Henry Kissinger once.
How the fuck was he able to make this video in... Like, this is a pretty well-produced video. How was he able to make it in that short amount of time? That's crazy. Alright, I'm going to send... there's no fucking alliances. What the fuck? That's so gay.
And frankly, I didn't...
How was he able to make this video that fast? He literally released it in the same day.
Gotten to know him, at least his career.
That's impressive.
Studied him and his actions, both the good and the bad. So today, I want to look at this man, Henry Kissinger. I want to look at what he did and evaluate what we can learn from this person who, for better or worse, has played an influential role in how American power is wielded on the global stage.
On this, perhaps the most gentle and graceful land in all of Asia, President Nixon and Mr. Kissinger unleashed 100,000 tons of bombs.
Henry Kissinger was born on May 27, 1923 in Germany. When he was a teenager, his family left Germany for the United States, fleeing oppression from the Nazis. He went to Harvard, and later was drafted into the Army during World War II, serving in a counterintelligence role. After the war, he returned to Harvard and pursued a PhD in political science. Kissinger made a name for himself as a political theorist and author. He focused on the role of nuclear weapons and this new geopolitics that had emerged after World War II. He studied a political philosophy called realpolitik, which emphasizes how countries gain power by reacting practically to conflicts and situations, as opposed to based on ideology or values. But from my reading, what made Kissinger powerful was his ability to connect with people, to network in Washington, D.C. That was perhaps his greatest asset, and the thing that kept him close to power. This was later exemplified by the fact that Kissinger served under both Republican and Democratic presidents. You can start to see Kissinger's realpolitik and networking skills in full action well before he ever stepped foot in the White House. According to this archived document from Nixon's chief of staff, early in his career when he was working for the Democratic president LBJ as an advisor on Vietnam, he cozied up to the Democrats' political opponent, Richard Nixon, who was running for president. So he cozies up to Nixon and conspires to pass Nixon information about secret Vietnam War peace talks happening in Paris. Nixon could potentially use this information that he got from Kissinger to prevent the peace talks from going well, which in turn would make the Democrats look bad, since they were the ones in power, and help pave the way for Nixon to win the presidency.
What if I told you that you can use motion array to improve your videos fast? For example, you can create a professional opener just like this.
Now, there's a significant... One of the most controversial and powerful figures in American politics is dead. Kissinger was an American diplomat and political scientist. He served as National Security Advisor and Secretary of State under 2 presidents. And his career is full of a lot. Some laudable achievements, such as normalizing relations with China, but also full of some actions that many call war crimes. Many of you watching are 100% positive that Henry Kissinger is a war criminal. Others might see Kissinger as a brilliant leader who helped the U.S. navigate very uncertain times during the Cold War. I actually met Henry Kissinger once.
What?
Was working at a think tank in D.C. where he was a
That's pretty
counselor
crazy.
at USD. And frankly, I didn't glean much about this guy's character in our little meeting. But since then, we've gotten to know him, at least his career. We've studied him and his actions, both the good and the bad. So today, I want to look at this man, Henry Kissinger. I want to look at what he did and evaluate what we can learn from this person who, for better or worse, has played an influential role in how American power is wielded on the global stage.
On this, perhaps the most gentle and graceful land in all of Asia, President Nixon and Mr. Kissinger unleashed 100,000 tons of bombs.
Henry Kissinger was born on May 27, 1923 in Germany.
Damn
When
it.
he was a teenager, his family left Germany for the United States, fleeing oppression from the Nazis. He went to Harvard and later was drafted into the Army during World War II, serving in a counterintelligence role. After the war, he returned to Harvard and pursued a PhD in political science. Kissinger made a name for himself as a political theorist and author. He focused on the role of nuclear weapons and this new geopolitics that had emerged after World War II. He studied a political philosophy called Realpolitik, which emphasizes how countries gain power by reacting practically to conflicts and situations, as opposed to based on ideology or values. But from my reading, what made Kissinger powerful was his ability to connect with people, to network in Washington, D.C. That was perhaps his greatest asset, and the thing that kept him close to power. This was later exemplified by the fact that Kissinger served under both Republican and Democratic presidents. You can start to see Kissinger's realpolitik and networking skills in full action well before he ever stepped foot in the White House. According to this archived document from Nixon's chief of staff, early in his career when he was working for the Democratic president LBJ as an advisor on Vietnam, he cozied up to the Democrats' political opponent, Richard Nixon, who was running for president. So he cozies up to Nixon and conspires to pass Nixon information about secret Vietnam War peace talks happening in Paris. Nixon could potentially use this information that he got from Kissinger to prevent the peace talks from going well, which in turn would make the Democrats look bad, since they were the ones in power, and help pave the way for Nixon to win the presidency. Now, there's a significant debate on whether or not all of this sort of backroom deal thing had any impact on
I'm trying
peace
to big
talks.
dick
So
it
what
here.
I care about in this little story is what it shows about Henry Kissinger. That he was willing to go to these lengths to betray the president he was working for and to cozy up to a candidate who he hated but thought could potentially win the presidency, to pass on information that could potentially compromise the peace talks that might end the war in Vietnam. Anyway, the peace talks did indeed break down, the day before the presidential election, no less. Nixon ended up winning, and Kissinger, this political theorist turned power-hungry networker, had shown that he was willing to sabotage peace talks in the name of gaining favor in the eyes of a powerful man. Nixon appointed Kissinger as his national security advisor, giving him an unprecedented level of control. Control over what he could use the American power machine to do on the global stage, all in the name of national security. Now listen, most of us weren't alive at this time, so we don't really know what this was like to live during the 60s and 70s, when kind of everything was about the Cold War and specifically Vietnam. So now you have Henry Kissinger and Richard Nixon overseeing this war. It was a war that was no closer to ending. A war that, remember, these two conspired to lengthen so that together they could end it and score Nixon political points. And this leads us to perhaps the most infamous of Kissinger's sins. There's a reason why Anthony Bourdain said, quote, "Once you've been to Cambodia, you'll never stop wanting to beat Henry Kissinger to death with your bare hands." That's because in March 1969, Kissinger directed the U.S. Air Force to fly over Vietnam's neighbor, Cambodia, a neutral third party, and to drop bombs everywhere.
President Nixon and Mr. Kissinger unleashed 100,000 tons of bombs, the equivalent of 5 Hiroshimas. The bombing was their personal decision, illegally and secretly. They bombed Cambodia, a neutral country, back to the Stone Age.
The goal was to eliminate North Vietnamese supply lines and strongholds that were in Cambodia, but the response was carpet bombing. Carpet bombing is indiscriminate. It has unknown targets, which means that civilians usually get caught in the crossfire. So now you have B-52s raining down hell from the sky at all hours of the day. Homes were reduced to rubble, entire villages were turned immediately into refugees, and what the record shows, came out later, is that all of this indiscriminate bombing, this slaughter from above, was approved by and then concealed by Henry Kissinger. This map that you're looking at is not some stylized representation of this. This is actual data. We have the data of every bomb, hundreds of thousands of bombs that were dropped on Cambodia during this time. All in all, at least 100,000 Cambodians died in all of this. 2 million were made homeless, and this is in a country of only 7 million people. In total, the US dropped 2,756,000 tons of bombs on Cambodia. Many of these bombs went undetonated, turning the country into a minefield of undetonated explosives that still exist today. And perhaps more significantly, contributing to the destabilizing of this country, making way for a violent communist party to rise to power with a vengeance, leading to a mass genocide. All of this happened in secret, without the approval of Congress. It was Henry Kissinger, this one man, wielding his deftly gotten power to ruthlessly get what he wanted at any cost. As the endless war was near its end, peace negotiations kept breaking down. In response, Kissinger sent another round of brutal bombings around Christmas 1972 in an effort to force the North Vietnamese back to the negotiating table.
Great content needs a great audience, like a purple dinosaur needs a hug.
Can I have a hug?
I got your hug right here, Dino Boy. Yeah! How you like that? Huh? Huh? Yeah, that's what I thought. With TubeBuddy, you get everything you need to grow your audience. Click the link to sign up. TubeBuddy is a channel optimizer that the pros use. What pros? I'm talking Adobe, NFL, Nickelodeon, Mr. Beast, even the BBC. So what's the secret? Human sacrifices to the algorithm.
What the fuck?
Great.
And I'm not exaggerating here. Like, Kissinger literally said, quote, "We bombed the North Vietnamese into accepting our concessions." Some historians argued that the bombings had little effect on the peace talks and instead only resulted in more pain, more death, and more destruction. And yet, this is where the story takes an insane turn. The next year, Henry Kissinger was given a Nobel Peace Prize for brokering the ceasefire in Vietnam, an award given to him for ending a war that didn't actually end. An award that his North Vietnamese counterpart would decline. 2 members of the Nobel Peace Committee resigned in protest because of this.
It is as if everyone at the Olympic Stadium joined in carrying an athlete on their shoulders in an endless triumphal procession without pausing to realize that in fact he had won no gold medals.
Fuck yes.
And Kissinger himself even felt weird about this and offered to give the medal back to the committee. Okay. This is one of the great parodies of the modern era that this ever happened. But it doesn't end here. In Chile in 1970, Kissinger directed the CIA to destabilize the country and seek to overthrow its recently elected socialist president. The coup attempt failed here, but it eventually did lead to the assassination of a Chilean general.
I hope he doesn't think that he can take it. Oh man, he might be trying.
This Chilean general who would go on
to
kidnap, murder, and torture his political opponents. But because he wasn't a communist, Kissinger
damn it, he
turned a
is. He
blind
is
eye.
trying.
In fact, one of the features of Henry Kissinger during his time was cozying up to dictators all around the world, all in the name of securing America's place as the
I was
global
really
superpower.
hoping
He
against
pledged
that.
his support for this Indonesian military dictator, as he was
I hope that he
invading
doesn't.
East Timor using American weapons. We have this declassified document of the conversation between Kissinger and this military dictator. Kissinger telling
Yeah,
this
he's gonna
military
get it.
dictator to move fast on his invasion and to not be too obvious about the fact that he's using U.S. military weaponry in support. The dictator did move fast and soon was exterminating hundreds of thousands of people. Kissinger and his big, powerful apparatus standing by to watch what they had sponsored. While illegally bombing Cambodia, Kissinger also oversaw illegal bombings in Laos. He supported Pakistan in their genocide against Bangladesh. He supported Turkey as they invaded Cyprus. He helped kick off U.S. dependence on Saudi Arabia for oil in exchange for selling them weapons, a relationship that we're still bound to today. He supported coups and death squads across Latin America, and the list goes on and on and on.
I won't have it from him. He's doing this against communism. It's just another of the constituents of the gigantic lie that constitutes his reputation. He's a thug, and a crook, and a liar, and a pseudo-intellectual, and a murderer. Okay? All of those things
I don't know why the
factually
fuck he did
verified,
that.
Factually verified.
I mean, listen, it was the Cold War. Like, again, none of us can really capture what that was like. You had 2 superpowers racing to see who could get more nuclear weapons. There was real fear here, and leaders had to make very difficult decisions. Defenders
That
of
guy was
Kissinger
dumb.
see all of this behavior that I've listed as just a leader living in the Cold War, having to do what it takes to avoid. All in all, at least 100,000 Cambodians died in all of this. 2 million were made homeless. and this is in a country of only 7 million people. In total, the US dropped 2,756,000 tons of bombs on Cambodia. Many of these bombs went undetonated, turning the country into a minefield of undetonated explosives that still exist today. And perhaps more significantly, contributing to the destabilizing of this country, making way for a violent communist party to rise to power with a vengeance, leading to a mass genocide. All of this happened in secret, without the approval of Congress. It was Henry Kissinger, this one man, wielding his deftly gotten power to ruthlessly get what he wanted at any cost. As the endless war was near its end, peace negotiations kept breaking down. In response, Kissinger sent another round of brutal bombings around Christmas 1972 in an effort to force the North Vietnamese back to the negotiating table. And I'm not exaggerating here. Like, Kissinger literally said, quote, "We bombed the North Vietnamese into accepting our concessions." Some historians argued that the bombings had little effect on the peace talks and instead only resulted in more pain, more death, and more destruction. And yet, this is where the story takes an insane turn. The next year, Henry Kissinger was given a Nobel Peace Prize for brokering the ceasefire in Vietnam, an award given to him for ending a war that didn't actually end. An award that his North Vietnamese counterpart would decline. 2 members of the Nobel Peace Committee resigned in protest because of this.
It is as if everyone at the Olympic Stadium joined in carrying an athlete on their shoulders in an endless triumphal procession, without pausing to realize that in fact he had won no gold medals at all.
And Kissinger himself even felt weird about this and offered to give the medal back to the committee. Okay. This is one of the great parodies of the modern era that this ever happened. But it doesn't end here. In Chile in 1970, Kissinger directed the CIA to destabilize the country and seek to overthrow its recently elected socialist president. The coup attempt failed here, but it eventually did lead to the assassination of a Chilean general. The president was eventually overthrown and replaced by this Chilean general who would go on to kidnap, murder, and torture his political opponents. But because he wasn't a communist, Kissinger turned a blind eye. In fact, one of the features of Henry Kissinger during his time was cozying up to dictators all around the world, all in the name of securing America's place as the global superpower. He pledged his support for this Indonesian military dictator as he was invading East Timor using American weapons. We have this declassified document of the conversation between Kissinger and this military dictator. Kissinger telling this military dictator to move fast on his invasion and to not be too obvious about the fact that he's using US military weaponry in support. The dictator did move fast and soon was exterminating hundreds of thousands of people. Kissinger and his big powerful apparatus standing by to watch what they had sponsored. While illegally bombing Cambodia, Kissinger also oversaw illegal bombings in Laos. He supported Pakistan in their genocide against Bangladesh. He supported Turkey as they invaded Cyprus. He helped kick off US dependence on Saudi Arabia for oil in exchange for selling them weapons, a relationship that we're still bound to today. He supported coups and death squads across Latin America, and the list goes on and on and on.
I won't have it from him that he's doing this against communism. It's just another of the constituents of the gigantic lie that constitutes his reputation. He's a thug and a crook and a liar and a pseudo-intellectual and a murderer. Okay? All of those things are factually verifiable. Factually verifiable.
How do you automate your whole sales process in less than a minute? With Zapier. Because of Zapier, my sales process is streamlined and automated without me having to do a bunch of manual work. Go to Zapier.com and try it for free today.
I mean, listen, it was the Cold War. Like, again, none of us can really capture what that was like. You had 2 superpowers racing to see who could get more nuclear weapons. There was real fear here, and leaders had to make very difficult decisions. Defenders of Kissinger see all of this behavior that I've listed as just a leader living in the Cold War, having to do what it takes to avoid nuclear conflict or a communist takeover, a vital elder statesman serving America and making impossible decisions along the way. But the most vociferous critics tend to see the opposite. An evil genius who was given the full arsenal of American power, which he then wielded to achieve his grand vision of how the world should look. But when you look at the arc of Henry Kissinger's career, neither of these characterizations hold. He was not a master strategist or an unparalleled genius. In fact, he's a guy full of contradictions. He conspired to extend the Vietnam War despite thinking that the war was foolish. He joined the Nixon White House despite long maintaining that Richard Nixon was not presidential material. He orchestrated these increased bombings of Vietnam and Cambodia despite all evidence indicating that the US could not win this war. A reminder that Henry Kissinger grew up being bullied and beaten up for being a Jew in Nazi Germany. And then he fled that brutality to come to the United States, where he studied how power works between countries, but also between people. He used those skills to navigate himself into standing in the most powerful places in the world, next to the most powerful people in the world, the most powerful military in the world at his disposal, and the permission to use it as he saw fit. Henry Kissinger knew what it took to stay on top. And what it took was shifting alliances, secret bombing campaigns,
I wonder if he's gonna go
sabotaging
in
peace
there.
talks, supporting dictators abroad, and the list goes on. I guess the point here is that Henry Kissinger's master guiding principle was to have no guiding principle. He infused that into his leadership, into his decisions, leading to the destruction of many lives around the globe.
Thank you.
Ripples that are still felt today. Even if Henry Kissinger were still alive, I believe he would never face true accountability for his actions. He played the game too well. He's too liked by powerful people on both sides of the aisle. But ultimately, if we can learn anything from this, the death of Henry Kissinger,
Unless if
gives
he's
us an
gonna come and try to
opportunity
take it with that
appreciate
20.
What can happen when too much power is concentrated in the hands of one man?
Or if he...
Thank you all for watching. Today's video is not sponsored. We actually made it many months ago and published it today for obvious reasons. If you want to support the channel and the journalism,
So he just knew that Henry Kissinger was gonna die soon, and then made that. That makes more sense. See this.
What is a woman?
I do want to move on to Johnny Harris. Are you familiar with this person? He used to work at Vox. He's a big great team of editors. We call him CIA. Johnny Harris is a joke, but he made a video.
I mean,
Was
yeah,
Henry
he does. That whole place is lit like it's supposed to be in Zero Dark 30.
Yeah, he made a new video called "Was Henry Kissinger a War Criminal?" in which I assume he's going to both sides his legacy, and you can get a better understanding of what's going on right now.
Kissinger was an American diplomat and political scientist. He served as National Security Advisor and Secretary of State under 2 presidents. And his career is full of a lot.
I wonder if he's gonna try to take orange. I mean, purple. Not purple. Fucking.
Full of a lot.
Some
Okay.
actions that many call war crimes. Many of you watching are 100% positive that Henry Kissinger is a war criminal. Others might see Kissinger as a brilliant leader who helped the U.S. navigate very uncertain times during the Cold War. I actually met Henry Kissinger once. I was working at a think tank in D.C. where he was a counselor and trustee. And frankly, I didn't glean much about this guy's character in our little meeting. But since then, we've gotten to know him, at least his career. We've studied him and his actions, both the good and the bad. So today, I want to look at this man, Henry Kissinger. I want to look at what he did and evaluate what we can learn from this person who, for better or worse, has played an influential role in how American power is wielded on the global stage. Henry Kissinger was born on May 27, 1923 in Germany. When he was a teenager, his family left Germany for the United States, fleeing oppression from the Nazis. He went to Harvard, and later was drafted into the army during World War II, serving in a counterintelligence role. After the war, he returned to Harvard and pursued a PhD in political science. Kissinger made a name for himself as a political theorist and author. He focused on the role of nuclear weapons, and this new...
I'm gonna pause it immediately. This is like...
Yeah, he has a ton of books on nuclear weapons. He has a shit ton of books. Like, probably, like, at least... I know of at least 5.
Are you familiar with
or
the
no,
stuff that
4.
he did during World War II? Like, or at all, or no?
Yeah, the intelligence work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, loosely. I mean, I'm just kind of, I think it's, like, super funny that this guy, I mean, it's, yeah, I'm like, waiting for this to be a bit more than Wikipedia, but, like, it's, so far, I'm learning a lot about, also, he's like, when I was working at a think tank, I met Henry Kissinger.
Wait, he met Henry Kissinger? Oh my God, he is not beating the CIA allegations.
No, and, well, and it's...
NATO too.
Wait, this guy, this guy works for the CIA, the one who just made that video?
This thing, like, we've studied his career, we've da-da-da-da-da, and it's like, who the f is this we? Like, like part of me, like, so I don't know if the CIA Johnny character is a friend of yours, but he's no friend of mine.
But he is a meme in this community. I mean, I watch his videos; they're very well produced. Usually, I think he's the
well produced. The script sucks, is what I'm really saying.
Well, his style is very much so like, hey, a lot of the stuff we did in the past was bad and wrong, but like what we're doing now is actually fine and good. Like that classic liberal guy who's like whenever something gets declassified and in American public consciousness, we can like openly admit that it's bad. He will turn around and openly admit it's bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
While still using that legitimacy.
I want to see what happens when he gets to the part where Henry Kissinger actually does the war crimes.
Yeah, let's see.
Geopolitics that had emerged after World War II. He studied a political philosophy called realpolitik, which emphasizes how countries gain power by reacting practically to conflicts and situations.
Why? By the way, so many like people that talk about Henry Kissinger.
Should I try to take him? I don't know if.
You know what I mean? Like, why?
Well, I
why
mean,
is it?
It's because like they are.
I have the ability to.
Ill-informed. And because the realpolitik thing is just like mumbo jumbo, frankly. I mean, like realpolitik is a real thing and like system of beliefs that can guide how people think about foreign policy. Just the thing is, Kissinger didn't evince those over the course of his career. Like he selectively used certain principles of them, and he cultivated the mystique of being
if
somebody
no one
like
takes
that
him this time,
because it jived
I definitely
with his
will be
image
able
as
to.
a truth teller. And as a wise counselor, like it's very easy to see how I mean, and also it's just like truthfully, like it's very easy to lie and say like
unless if he uses his cards, then I don't want to.
And nobody will ever press you on it in our political system. So it's like he can get away with this for like decades because it's like people will just take that as a granted that that's an okay assumption that there is a situation that is conceivable where you kill 1 million people and it's fine.
As opposed to based on ideology or values. But from my reading, what made Kissinger powerful was his ability to connect with people, to network in Washington, D.C. That was perhaps his greatest asset. And the thing...
Yeah, I mean, he's not wrong.
Here's the plan. You sneak past the guards and grab the treasure. What are you gonna do? I'm gonna shop at thriftbooks.com.
It's just
keep playing. I just want to see how he talks about this.
Yeah, I mean, his ability is to suck ass. Like he's very good at ass sucking. His ability, but he thinks John Harris thinks as a positive. I don't. That's the difference.
Thing that kept him close to power. This was later exemplified by the fact that Kissinger served under both Republican and Democratic presidents. You can start to see Kissinger's realpolitik and networking skills in full action well before he ever stepped foot in the White House. According to this archived document from Nixon's chief of staff, Early in his career, when he was working for the Democratic President LBJ as an
This is
advisor on
true.
Vietnam, he cozied up to the Democrats' political opponent, Richard Nixon, who was running for president. So he cozies up to Nixon and conspires to pass
Damn.
information about
He did
secret
turn in
Vietnam
his
War
cards.
peace talks happening in Paris.
Now I
Nixon
don't
could
feel like
potentially
taking him.
use this information that he got from Kissinger to prevent the peace talks from going well, which in
Thank God, thank God, good thing to do. It's funny, like, I mean, I don't know. I wanna always ask like someone like Johnny Harris, like how they feel about Donald Trump and his campaign
well, I
in
think like
2016.
it's really clear. Like he's doing like I'm curious, but like it seems like he's doing a wind up to be like he did some bad stuff, but get ready for this because this guy who did some bad stuff, he also did some good stuff. And listen, like Hooplehead, if you want the good stuff,
you gotta do the bad.
I'm gonna guess. I'm not a betting man, but I'll bet that's where this is going.
I mean, even thus far, like framing something that could be akin to treason as like good networking is
Yeah, like literally, Lyndon Johnson didn't reveal it publicly, even though he had caught Kissinger doing this. I think because of wiretaps. Was because it was I think it'll completely flip the 1968 election. I don't know if it's having any impact, and I don't think it's worth causing a civil war because of that. It's a very I mean, all right, let's see what we keep.
Nixon could potentially use this information that he got from Kissinger to prevent the peace talks from going well, which in
thank God, thank God, good thing to do. It's funny, like, I mean, I don't know. I wanna always ask like someone like Johnny Harris, like how they feel about Donald Trump and his campaign
I think
in 2016.
it's really clear. He's doing I'm curious, but it seems like he's doing a wind up to be like he did some bad stuff, but get ready for this because this guy who did some bad stuff, he also did some good stuff. And listen, like Hooplehead, if you want the good stuff, you gotta do the bad. I'm gonna guess. I'm not a betting man, but I'll bet that's where this is going.
I mean, even thus far, like framing something that could be akin to treason as like good networking is
Yeah, literally, Lyndon Johnson didn't reveal it publicly, even though he had caught Kissinger doing this. I think because of wiretaps. Was because it was I think it'll completely flip the 1968 election. I don't know if it's having any impact, and I don't think it's worth causing a civil war because of that. It's a very I mean, all right, let's see what we keep.
In turn, would make the Democrats look bad since they were the ones in power, and help pave the way for Nixon to win the presidency. Now, there's a significant debate on whether or not all of this sort of backroom deal thing had any impact on the peace talks. But what I care about in this little story is what it shows about Henry Kissinger. That he was willing to go to these lengths to betray the president he was working for and to cozy up to a candidate who he hated but thought could potentially win the presidency. To pass on information that could potentially compromise the peace talks that might end the war in Vietnam. Anyway, the peace talks did indeed break down. The day before the presidential election, no less. Nixon ended up winning. And Kissinger, this political theorist turned power-hungry networker, had shown that he was willing to sabotage peace talks in the name of gaining favor in the eyes of a powerful man. Nixon appointed Kissinger as his national security advisor, giving him an unprecedented level of control. Control over what he could use the American power machine to do on the global stage, all in the name of national security.
Okay.
No cap detected. This is very good.
Yeah. No, so far so good. A lot of people were telling me like he's Mr. CIA in this one, but so far not bad.
Yeah, I mean we'll see.
Did you figure out what you were doing with the computer?
Yeah, it won't let me fucking download anything because I can't update.
When kind of every
Oh, that's fucking gay.
Cold War and specifically Vietnam. So now you have Henry Kissinger and Richard Nixon overseeing this war. It was a war that was no closer to ending. A war that, remember, these two conspired to lengthen so that together they could end it and score Nixon political points. And this leads us to perhaps the most infamous of Kissinger's sins. There's a reason why Anthony Bourdain said, quote, "Once you've been to Cambodia, you'll never stop wanting to beat Henry Kissinger to death with your bare hands." That's because in March 1969, Kissinger directed the US Air Force to fly over Vietnam's neighbor, Cambodia, a neutral third party, and to drop bombs everywhere.
By the way, his involvement on the bombing campaign is like far beyond, like anyone.
He literally picked the targets.
Yeah, like anyone in that position, I feel like leading up to this moment was not this involved in exactly where to bomb. Like picking targets is crazy.
No, and it was also meant to keep people out of the loop. Like, it was meant to make sure. So, because Kissinger basically, in between the election of Nixon and his inauguration, Kissinger put together a plan to remake the National Security Council from this kind of, bureaucratic intelligence analysis and centralization, division.
Want your video to stand out? Go to motionarray.com.
To basically being the end all be all for anything to get, to reach the president. And Kissinger asserted all that power and kind of, just put it up on a plate for Nixon and designed it so that Nixon could insulate all of this Cambodia decision making from the rest of the government. And this included the Secretary of Defense, Melvin Laird, who didn't oppose bombing Cambodia, but opposed the idea of doing it secretly. And then Secretary of State William Rogers, both of whom Kissinger
set me up perfectly.
Kissinger eventually wanted and
Fuck
took Rogers
yes.
the job, but he hated both men and saw them as threats to his own pole position within the White House.
Yeah. For chatters who are asking why did they bomb a neutral country, because they considered it to be of strategic interest, because the Ho Chi Minh Trail existed where they suspected that the Vietnamese army was getting weapons through through the border, basically. That's it.
President Nixon and Mr. Kissinger
Yeah. Because the enemy walked through parts of it, or so was thought.
unleashed 100,000 tons of bombs, the equivalent of 5 Hiroshimas. The bombing was their personal decision, illegally and secretly. They bombed Cambodia, a neutral country, back to the Stone Age.
The goal was to eliminate North Vietnamese supply lines and strongholds that were in Cambodia, but the response was carpet bombing. Carpet bombing is indiscriminate. It has unknown targets, which means that civilians usually get caught in the crossfire. So now you have B-52s raining down hell from the sky at all hours of the day.
Here, I'll explain it like this for all the Zoomers. They had terror tunnels with terror babies in Cambodia. That's why, okay? They had tunnels of terror. So that's why they just indiscriminately bombed areas of high civilian population density.
It's worse than that, dude. It's worse than that because Nixon believed that. So there were two communist fighting forces. There was the PAVN, which is the People's Army of North Vietnam, and then you had the NLF's fighting force, which I guess is called the VC in America. But these two fighting forces were Nixon believed that the NLF's military command was in Cambodia, and so he believed the evidence shows that Nixon believed that they were taking out the Viet military leadership there, when in reality they were bombing the poorest part of one of the poorest countries in the world, Holocaust levels for years essentially.
Yeah.
Homes were reduced to rubble, entire villages were turned immediately into refugees, and what the record shows, that came out later, is that all of this indiscriminate bombing, this slaughter from above, was approved by and then concealed by Henry Kissinger.
Approved isn't strong enough. Kissinger literally picked the targets. This was Kissinger's baby. So, but that's semantic almost. I want to emphasize that it really was.
Oh, yeah. No, for sure.
This map that you're looking at is not some stylized representation of this. This is actual data. We have the data of every bomb, hundreds of thousands of bombs that were dropped on Cambodia during this time. All in all, at least 100.
I mean, to be fair, it's just, even when you think about the authorized actions that the American government took in Vietnam, you look at South Vietnam and what they did there, and it's you know what I mean? They're god-awful and belligerent across the board everywhere, unconditionally.
And we also, like, this is just Cambodia. Laos was was bombed even more heavily. And, you know, like, this is, like, this is just the part that, like, Kissinger created, you know, Kissinger engineered. I mean, like, one journalist, he very famously wrote a book about this called Sideshow. Like, this was just one element of it.
Yeah.
100,000 Cambodians died in all of this. 2 million were made homeless. And this is in a country of only 7 million people. In total, the US dropped 2,756,000 tons of bombs on Cambodia. Many of these bombs went undetonated, turning the country into a minefield of undetonated explosives that still exist today.
Oh, yeah.
And perhaps more significantly, contributing to the destabilizing of this country, making way for a violent communist party to rise to power with a vengeance, leading to a mass genocide. All of this happened.
I mean, dude, it's like the classic, like, Pol Pot, communist leader Pol Pot.
Yeah, Paul, I mean, it's like, you know, it's like they were so only notionally Marxist, but like I said, I want to kind of leave that a little mysterious for the moment, just because big things.
But, like, yeah, I mean, let's see what he has to say about Henry Kissinger's opinion on. Henry Kissinger is obviously an anti-communist, so I wonder what he will say about his dealings with the Khmer Rouge.
Generally.
So here's a secret YouTube hack I learned. To skyrocket your YouTube growth, using YouTube Shorts. First, if you go to TubeBuddy.com, which you can sign up for free, they have this brand new tool that's gonna blow you away. What it does is it shows you an exact time frame of increased retention that you can turn into a short. And it shows you all of the best times on your best performing videos so you can create more.
In secret, without the approval of Congress, it was Henry Kissinger, this one man, wielding his deftly gotten power to ruthlessly get what he wanted at any cost. As the endless war was near its end, peace negotiations kept breaking down. In response, Kissinger sent another round of brutal bombings around Christmas 1972 in an effort to force the North Vietnamese back to the negotiating table. And I'm not exaggerating here. Like, Kissinger literally said, quote, "We bombed the North Vietnamese into accepting our concessions." Some historians argue that the bombings had little effect on the peace talks, and instead only...
Yeah.
I mean, this is the other thing, is like Kissinger, so this isn't happening in isolation. Kissinger is also going to the Soviet Union and is lobbying them essentially to try and, because they're the primary patrons of the North Vietnamese, and he's like, Kissinger earnestly believed, evidently, that like he could, like, you know, take the, you know, because the Soviets desperately wanted to ease tensions to the U.S., and Kissinger thought that he could use that into getting them to back off North Vietnam, when like that just wasn't the state.
Yeah, what's up, dog?
Kissinger been listening to his State Department, they probably would have told him
streaming. What about you?
He's, you know, doing like he was always engaged in this game of trying to apply as much pressure as possible on Hanoi to increase America's position.
Yeah,
this guy, he keeps saying
probably
some historians argue whatever, but like he shouldn't do that, because the
2 hours?
record by this point is pretty clear. None of it mattered.
All right.
Like the way that things wound up meant that like Kissinger's, you know, none of his interventions changed anything in the end, except that more people died. Lots more people died.
Bye.
Another identical parallel to, let's say, sieging and absolutely eviscerating,
He's wondering if we wanted to go
say,
axe
northern
throwing
Gaza,
tonight.
only to have a 6-day truce where Hamas and Islamic Jihad openly still continue
It's
operating
$20
out
a
of
person.
North Gaza, which is supposed to be under siege, where they reveal hostages that some of which were in tunnel systems, but others were in houses. It's like, what happened there? The bombing is supposedly the reason.
I mean, it's an important point. These bombing like this, and this guy made an important point about it, like, what's the point of carpet bombing? You know, and how similar it looks and is in effect to what a lot of people today call strategic bombing. Like, the reality is that like it's I think like the bombing, it's an important point, like it's an important parallel to point out, because in the case of Hamas, like, people have this assumption, right, that, oh, we're just gonna be able to eradicate them. Like, Israel's able to do that. And it's like, well, Israel doesn't really seem to have the stomach for the multi-year operation that would actually require. And so what they're doing instead is just like trying to do as much damage, I mean, this is my perspective, until somebody says stop. And like, you know, like that's where it's like the difference here is that what makes this arguably, you know, like in a certain sense worse was that the North Vietnamese had, for all intents and purposes, won. After, you know, Tet Offensive in 1968, the Vietnam War had essentially been lost. Like there was no military victory was broadly understood as no longer like possible based on what America was willing to put into the war. With that determined, you know, like what this ended up doing, this was Kissinger and Nixon saying, well, actually, we can really win this thing if we just do it our way. And, you know, it didn't do that. You know, as the freeze frame says, it just brought more pain. Like that was it. And the North Vietnamese, you know, repeatedly, I have an article that'll come out, I think, tomorrow or the day after, where I go in a little bit more detail on this, but like the North Vietnamese understood that this was what they were doing, but it was just like, you know, what were they going to do? Concede things that they had already won and that they knew if they waited out? Like, you know, it's a common problem that like America has faced. They underestimate the power of, we live here as a, you know, incentive to hold on and negotiating.
Yeah. It resulted in more pain, more death, and more destruction. And yet, this is where the story takes an insane turn. The next year, Henry Kissinger was given a Nobel Peace Prize for brokering this.
Yeah, only insane if you think like the institution means anything, really.
Wait, hold on. Hit play. I want to see if he says the full thing here.
Ceasefire in Vietnam. An award given to him for ending a war that didn't actually end. An award that his North Vietnamese counterpart would decline. Two members of the Nobel Peace Committee resigned in protest because of this.
It is as if everyone at the Olympic Stadium joined in carrying an athlete on their shoulders in an endless triumphal procession, without pausing to realize that in fact he had won no gold medals at all.
And Kissinger himself even felt weird about this.
Why Buckley? To use there, I wonder. I mean, I guess he's so eloquent.
Well, no, I mean, it is like he's a figure. Like Buckley and Kissinger had, like, I'm curious, like it's an interesting, but there's backstory there, like with Buckley and Kissinger. Kissinger used Buckley as a, like, he went to Buckley a lot to lobby for Nixon's policies, and used him as a conduit to the wider press, the conservative press specifically.
Buckley's the, I guess, Tucker Carlson of the era.
No, he's more than that in the sense that like Tucker Carlson is like he's a one-man show. He promotes himself. He's got his shtick. But like Buckley, you know, he built a magazine. You know, it's always been a money loser, blah blah blah. But like he sought to, you know, he fashioned himself as somebody who was like an institutional influence. And so if, you know, the Republican Party president comes to you and says, I need you to stand with me, you know, from attacks from the right on my Vietnam policy, then Buckley would do that. But also Buckley knew that, you know, when there was like the thing was lost, like he wasn't, I think that was one of the other things with like the Vietnam policy that was hard for even a lot of conservatives to fathom from the outside, which was that, like, why are we doing this thing half-assed? Like, why are we why aren't we committing more to it if we're going to do this? So yeah, like it's that sort of, like, Buckley he was more of an instrument than a font of ideas in this moment.
And offered to give the medal back to the committee. Okay, this is one of the great parodies of the modern era that this ever happened. But it doesn't end here. In Chile in 1970, Kissinger directed the CIA to destabilize the country and seek to overthrow its recently elected socialist president. The coup attempt failed here, but it eventually did lead to the assassination of a Chilean general. The president was eventually overthrown and replaced by this Chilean general who would go on to kidnap, murder, and torture his political opponents. But because he wasn't a communist, Kissinger turned a blind eye.
That is the most egregious use of passive voice that I've ever heard in my entire life.
I'm like, I mean, like, I don't think he's trying to say that the CIA didn't do it, but it's just like not really.
No. This is what I mean. He is literally doing that.
I mean, but the thing that more bugged me was that he said in 1970, and then he has a photo up of Kissinger and Gerald Ford, who wasn't president until 1974. So just like, listen, CIA guys, if you're editors, if his editing team is watching this, you know, come on, do better.
In fact, one of the features of Henry Kissinger during his time was cozying up to dictators all around the world, all in the name of securing America's place as the global superpower.
Yeah, he has done a video on coups where he literally said that there wasn't enough evidence to say that the CIA orchestrated the coup in Chile.
Wow.
That's why I'm
pretty
saying,
cute.
like, his.
I mean, it's funny
he always
because
does
like
this
the general that he talks about, like the killing of Renee Schneider, was like that was literally a CIA operation. I've looked at the files of Tony Sforza, the control agent who ran that operation. Like, it's just so funny. But yeah, whatever. Go on.
No, that's what I was trying to say, is that like the way that this insidious propaganda works is that you have to be somewhat critical of like what the CIA has done, as long as they've like kind of declassified it, and as long as like people kind of understand, you know what I mean, that it was like bad. But if there isn't a letter that specifically says like, hello, we are interested in doing a coup and putting Pinochet in power in a declassified document, these guys will always turn around. These guys will always turn around and be like, oh well, there's no literal evidence, you know?
Yep.
Like, he made it seem like the coup that occurred was, you know, and Allende just like kind of magically perished on his own as a series of unforeseeable events.
What was, like what's the thing that people put on like Instagram now when they don't want to say killed or whatever? Unalived. Yeah, he unalived himself.
Yeah.
He pledged his support for this Indonesian military dictator as he was invading East Timor using American weapons. We have this declassified document of the conversation between Kissinger and this military dictator. Kissinger telling this military...
Like, how, what do you need more to just, like, literally fucking draw the line perfectly? Like, even that, in my opinion, is, like, kind of passive voice. It's like, oh, this guy, rugged anti-communist dictator we placed in power and trained its forces to do, like, the worst amounts of torture and violence, then gets greenlit to go and invade East Timor, which, of course, also has a communist movement at the time. So, like, how does that, like, what do you mean? It's just a direct involvement there. There's direct American involvement at that point.
Well, but
like,
this is the thing where it's like, you can't, you know, like, it's difficult for Americans to accept that, like, look, it was Chileans leading that Chilean coup. It was, you know, or it's Indonesians that are invading East Timor. But as the ones with the preponderance of power, we know what we're fucking doing when we let those people do those things, or we don't let certain people do certain things.
Or when we arm them.
Exactly. You know, so there's, I mean, we hold that standard of other people. So I think it's always like people are just trying to cover their asses a bit about, you know, like to me it just feels like softening the blow of realizing how often we're the bad guys in history. That's all.
I do think it's successful though, because there are so many people out there that adorn the aesthetics of like radical politics, but then turn around and routinely say like, oh, Hassan, your arguments they're campus. This is the new thing that they love saying. You're campus. You're just like America bad guy. You don't have any like thought behind it. You just say America bad. And I think it's like a position that they take because they don't want to say America good, because that'd be embarrassing to have the politics of your grandparents. Like, that's yuck. It's gross. It's embarrassing. You're new. You're an anarchist. You're radical. You're a radical leftist of sorts, but you also want to defend NATO. You just kind of get on the defensive and say, well, some of these coups occurred on their own, and America's involvement in them is questionable.
Military dictator to move fast on his invasion and to not be too obvious about the fact that he's using U.S. military weaponry in support. The dictator did move fast and soon was exterminating hundreds of thousands of people. Kissinger and his big powerful apparatus standing by to watch what they had sponsored. While illegally bombing Cambodia, Kissinger also oversaw illegal bombings in Laos.
I wonder what this guy's plan is here.
Genocide against Bangladesh. He supported Turkey as they invaded Cyprus. He helped kick off U.S. dependence.
Just, you know, Henry Kissinger, not all bad. No, I'm just kidding.
Dependence on Saudi Arabia for oil in exchange for selling them weapons, a relationship that we're still bound to today. He supported coups and death squads across Latin America, and the list goes on and on and on.
I won't have it from him that he's doing this against communism. It's just another of the constituents of the gigantic lie that constitutes his reputation. He's a thug, and a crook, and a liar, and a pseudo-intellectual, and a murderer, okay? All of those things are factually verifiable. Factually verifiable.
I mean, listen, it was the Cold War. Like,
shit!
None of us can really capture what that was like. You had
come on, dude. It's just the Cold War, dude. We don't know what the real fears are.
I mean, honestly, by the way, that's a very Kissinger argument, because Kissinger believed that history and facts were fundamentally unknowable, and so thus the only way to proceed through the world was to just fully, concentrate on making your own reality as you wanted it. So, when somebody ever tells you, like, oh, you can't know what it was like, just know that that's Henry K. has said at some point that exact formulation.
Yeah. It's funny to say that. It's funny to say that in 2023, like after he died. Oh, we just didn't know. We didn't know what it was like. We don't know what the vibes were.
He just died. We can't know what it was like, even though this guy literally just died hours ago.
Yeah, no, it's just, how could we ever figure out what his mindset was like? Well, I mean, Mitchie wrote about it. Like, it's not like he was very unrepentant. He never really thought that anything he did was wrong, including all of this stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, he did something very smart, which was that, like, he did 3 things that were really smart. The first was that he published so much stuff and has generated so much, like, paper about his career, and so much that, like, it's just very hard to pin him down. Like, it's kind of notorious that way. And then the second thing is that he lied a lot as he was doing stuff or buried it. Like, if he could do something in secret, he did it. And so a lot of what, exists in, say, like, State Department cables or history, it's got to be taken in perspective with other information always, because you never knew what this guy was doing. He may be having an official overture and being the cables talking to somebody in between state and the government in France, but then he's probably got like a secret connection going that's actually where the real talks are going on with some French nuclear scientist and the head of their intelligence service or something. He was always doing shit like that.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Another thing I wanted to say, but now I'm forgetting.
The two superpowers
now, though,
racing to see who could get more nuclear weapons. There was real fear here, and leaders had to make very difficult decisions. Defenders of Kissinger see all of this behavior that I've listed as just a leader living in the Cold War, having to do.
When Henry Kissinger said we need smaller tactical nukes.
Well, it's just also like such a we're not even going to pretend like for the because that's not what they believe. Also, like they believe that a lot of these things were defensible. Whatever. I can't play. I want to see him play this out before I go.
What it takes to avoid nuclear conflict or a communist takeover. A vital elder statesman serving America and making impossible decisions along the way. But the most vociferous critics tend to see the opposite. An evil genius who was given the full arsenal of American power,
I don't even
which
think
he
he was a
then wielded
genius.
to achieve his grand vision of how the world should look. But when you look
Didn't
at
have
the
a
art
grand
of-
vision.
No, he was a belligerent psycho, and they just like
He threw temper train. There's a famous article in the prestigious academic journal Diplomatic History that is called, I think it's called The Emotional Statesman, or The Emotional Henry Kissinger. Like, he was known for whatever. Just
The only thing that he was good at was literally sucking ass, okay? He was great at brown nosing, fair, which he called networking, which is like light treason.
I love that. Networking, that's not a skill. That's not a real thing. If I ever
that is a fucking skill. What do you mean that's not a skill? That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard.
He was a schmoozer. He was a networker. Fine, that part is true. But the idea that like he's a small being who was doing complex things because he's like his critics do not pan him as an evil genius. His critics just pan him as evil and a belligerent fucking asshole.
He literally just played a clip from Christopher Hitchens where Hitchens calls him a pseudo-intellectual.
Yeah.
Like it's just like the content of this video has been pretty much fine. It's just that like this guy is, whenever he has to express an original thought, it feels like sculpted from the clay of like stupid.
Yeah, that part is ridiculous in my opinion, and also on top of that, the idea that like he was genuinely conflicted at the time and truly was operating on what he thought was best. When even that part is like, but he basically destroyed that argument when he talked about the Vietnam War and its extension. Like you can't say that you did it because you legitimately are interested in like changing the world in your vision, if you even have one to begin with. While simultaneously like we extended the Vietnam War for like personal gain right then and there.
Let's give this guy an out.
Henry
Let's see
Kissinger's
what he
career,
says.
neither of these characterizations hold. He was not a master strategist or an unparalleled genius.
Aha,
In
this
fact,
false dichotomy
he's a
I've
guy full of
established is fake.
contradictions.
And
He
instead,
conspired to extend the Vietnam War despite thinking that the war was foolish. He joined the Nixon White House despite long
Right, this is-
maintaining
now
that
he's
Richard
just
Nixon
saying
was
stupid
not
stuff.
presidential
This is
material. He
stupid.
orchestrated these increased bombings of Vietnam and
This is
Cambodia despite
meaningless.
all evidence indicating that the U.S. could not win this war. A reminder that Henry Kissinger
those aren't
grew up being
contradictions. Those are
bullied
just
and
facts.
beaten up
Those are
for
just
being
facts.
a Jew in
Also,
Nazi
being
Germany.
beaten
And then
up
he-
for his Clinton.
What is he? What
Ha!
is happening?
Loser.
Henry Kissinger himself has regularly on his like own personal Judaism and his own personal Jewish background. What the? I think he's the prototypical Zionist that went to America and was like, I just love America. I'm a big fan of America.
Yeah, and
across the
also
world.
what's my experience as a refugee from Weimar, Germany? Power will win. It just seems like this guy is working overtime to right now avoid drawing any conclusions about the story that he just told.
It's
you know?
pretty funny to say this about a dude who literally said, despite the curse of my Jewish background, like being born as a Jew, despite the curse of being born as a Jew, like if it wasn't for that, I would have probably also been anti-Semitic because
I will
no
say,
people.
I think that one was a pretty good joke, but in general, I do think he just didn't give a shit. I mean, what he really didn't care about was like, when he saw that there were Jews who were in his way, he would be the most anti-Semitic person right along there with Nixon. He just he didn't give a fuck about the specifics of his being Jewish. To the extent that it informed him, it was like, yeah, I fled Weimar Germany, and what that tells me is that the only thing that matters is power. And Israel is a fact, so we'll protect Israel. But by and large, let's do it. Like when he gets sworn in as Secretary of State, he does that whole America is only one country in the world where a story like mine cannot. It's just like he's. And by the way, that accent, it got thicker over the years. It's like he's. Like, this guy is just buying the bullshit that Kissinger was selling about himself to whatever. We'll see. Give him another minute. Let's see what goes.
Up for being a Jew in Nazi Germany. And then he fled that brutality to come to the United States, where he studied how power works between countries, but also between people. He used those skills to navigate himself into standing in the most powerful places in the world, next to the most powerful people in the world, the most powerful military in the world at his disposal, and the permission to use it as he saw fit. Henry Kissinger knew what it took to stay on top. And what it took was shifting alliances, secret bombing campaigns, sabotaging peace talks, supporting dictators abroad, and the list goes on. I guess the point here is that Henry Kissinger's master guiding principle was to have no guiding principle. He infused that into his leadership, into his decisions, leading to the destruction of many lives around the globe.
I agree with that.
Ripples that are still felt today. Even if Henry Kissinger were still alive, I believe he would never face true accountability for his actions. He played the game too well. He's too liked.
I don't think this video was as bad as the way chat presented it to me. I'll say
Yeah, I think it's fine.
Controversial opinion. There are a couple moments where it's like he could have been more critical, but other than that,
yeah, no. I think it's fine. CIA, Johnny Harris, you're mostly okay by me on this one. I'm sure I will come across you later.
But ultimately, if we can learn anything from this,
I gotta run. I'm going to the Nick
Henry
game.
Kissinger gives us an opportunity.
All right, well, Noah Cohen, thanks so much for coming on. What do you want to promote before you leave?
Blowback
Anything?
Season 4 is now in wide release. It is available wherever you get your podcasts. New episodes every Wednesday. Episode 4 just came out. We got 6 more weeks. There's merch. Go to blowback.show. You'll get all the details on all of that. And that's about it. Thank you.
All right, thanks for coming on, Noah.
Always a pleasure. Peace, bro.
Bye. All right, that was Noah Cohen of the Blowback Podcast. I don't think that this was as bad. You guys definitely massaged it. You guys definitely hit this like as though it was the worst thing I've ever seen from him, which I should have considered. I should have been more critical of the I should have been more critical of the comments from the chat, because like this is Henry Kissinger is exactly the type of motherfucker who like Johnny Harris will say is bad. You know what I mean?
The world is ready. With your future at your fingertips, it's time for you to take the reins. Study for a degree in animation, entertainment business, film, graphic design, media communications, writing for film and TV, and more. At the Los Angeles Film School, it's all about you. Your ideas, your vision, your future. The world is waiting.
Ladies and gentlemen, what is up, Risk?
I do want to move on to Johnny Harris. Are you familiar with this person? He used to work at Vox. He's has a great team of editors. We call him CIA. Johnny Harris is a joke, but he made a video.
I mean,
Was
yeah,
Henry
he does. That whole place is lit like it's supposed to be in Zero Dark 30.
Yeah, he made a new video called "Was Henry Kissinger a War Criminal?" in which I assume he's going to both sides his legacy, and you can
Henry
get a better
Kissinger,
understanding of what's
one of the
going
most
on right now.
Kissinger was an American diplomat and political scientist. He served as National Security Advisor and Secretary of State under 2 presidents. And his career is full of a lot. Some laudable achievements, such as normalizing relations with China,
career
but
is
also
full of a lot.
some
Okay.
actions that many call war crimes. Many of you watching are 100% positive that Henry Kissinger is a war criminal. Others might see Kissinger as a brilliant leader who helped the U.S. navigate very uncertain times during the Cold War. I actually met Henry Kissinger once. I was working at a think tank in D.C. where he was a counselor.
Go in, one more.
And
Do
frankly,
it.
I didn't glean much about this guy's
Do
character in our little meeting. But since then, we've gotten to know him.
Yeah, this shit was sick, what Elon Musk did. I think it's funny how communists are making fun of him right now for standing up for, like, free speech to not make money, and they hate billionaires. I just don't understand. They hate people making money. But he's...
You probably
what?
remember this, but
Oh,
a few weeks ago, Elon Musk responded in the affirmative, agreeing to a post that essentially just laid out the basic argument for the Jewish question. The post said something to the effects of, we shouldn't care for the plight of Jewish people because Jewish people promote hatred of white people. It's just it's like the fundamental basis of Nazi ideology concerning Jewish people. And Elon Musk replied with laughing, crying emoji, 100 emoji, arrow hitting the center of a target emoji, Lamau emoji.
Lamau.
And after that, there was a huge wave of advertisers who left. Apple, IBM, a bunch of others. You can look it up. Another wave of advertiser boycotts because, as it turns out, it looks bad to advertise on sites that are...
Yeah, but like, look, he's saying Elon Musk genius plan to lose all of Twitter's advertisements. But you fucking don't like billionaires. So why do you, the fuck do you care about him losing?
Following that, Elon Musk threatened a lawsuit and then filed one in a very blatant case of seeking a jurisdiction in Texas, under which the Attorney General of Texas said that he would, happily prosecute those companies. And Media Matters, the organization that filed the report on how Nazi-ified Twitter had become, for, I don't know, lying to destroy Twitter's revenue or whatever. So he filed a lawsuit. But that doesn't bring the money back, you see. And the lawsuit's going to take a while to... push through. It's also not going to go anywhere because it's a bullshit lawsuit. Following all of that, Elon Musk recently went on and had a pleasant conversation about the state of his company following the advertiser boycotts, and it was absolutely hysterical. I genuinely cannot overstate how insane this whole conversation was. I took a look at this and I thought, wow, I had to take a look at the whole thing, and I took a look at a bit of the whole thing, and it's a lot more of what we're going to see here, but I'm going to focus on the part I have something to say, something to say something about.
No, actually, what this advertising boycott is going to do, it's going to kill the company.
Oh, beautiful.
And you think that...
And the whole world.
Now, some of the things that I want you to focus on here is how unhinged and disconnected from his environment he looks. Don't focus on other stuff, like the fact that Elon Musk looks like an aging butch lesbian. That's superficial and not material. It's not just a matter of him being awkward here, and he is very awkward. It's also a matter of him genuinely seeming disconnected from his environment. Pay attention to audience reactions, too. It's like he's dissociating. Listen.
It's going to kill the company.
And you think that...
And the whole world will know that those advertisers killed the company, and we will document it in great detail.
But those advertisers, I imagine, are going to say... They're going to say, we didn't kill the company.
Oh, yeah?
They're going to say...
Tell it to Earth.
Tell it to Earth.
They're going to say, Elon, that you killed the company because you said these things and that they were inappropriate things
and that they didn't feel comfortable on the platform, right? That's what they're going to say.
And let's see how Earth responds to that.
Okay, then this goes back to...
There's an audience to this, by the way. I know it doesn't seem like it from the dead silence, but there's an audience here.
We'll both make our cases,
right?
And we'll see what the outcome is.
What are the economics of that for you? I mean, you have enormous resources, so you can actually keep this company going for a very long time. Would you keep it going for a long time?
Keep in mind, this guy is trying to tee Elon up, okay? This is not in any way, shape, or form an antagonistic interview. You know? This is, he's trying to tee Elon up here. This is an effort to launder him, essentially, and he's not taking it.
If there was no advertising?
I mean, if the company fails because of an advertiser boycott, it will fail because of an advertiser boycott. And that will be what bankrupted the company, and that's what everybody on Earth will know.
Again, I hope I don't have to point this out, but are you hearing how he's talking? So the way he's speaking, I'm guessing here, I'm not psychic. The way he's speaking here is the way that people tend to speak when they are so nervous that they're on like the verge of a breakdown or shutting down entirely. There's kind of like an upper lip thing where like your jaw tightens and you're
yes,
like,
because he's getting threatened by a bunch of like powerful people
trying to speak through like half of the I don't know what's called the glottal range, the way you like move your tongue. I'm not sure. There's like a whole science to this, but
What do you think then of the? This goes back to the idea of trust, though.
Then it'll be gone, and it'll be gone because of an advertiser boycott.
But you recognize that some of those people are going to say that they didn't feel comfortable on the platform, and I just wonder and ask you and think about that for a second.
Tell it to the judge.
Okay. First of all, I love the implication that he's going to sue the companies for no longer advertising. But again, think of what is being teed up for him here. This guy is like, well, people are going to say that it was your behavior. All Elon would have to say here is say, we run a free speech platform that millions of people use. Some of the speech on this platform is not going to be agreeable to everyone, and that's fine. That's the nature of free speech. There is a very standard bullshit line here that he could deliver that would fit perfectly with the rhetoric that he has used up to this point. But he can't do it, because he is so upset and so disconnected and so mad that he's literally sitting there going like, they'll pay, they'll all pay. Literally, that's what he's doing. He's the wealthiest man in the world. He's sitting there like, he's like interrupting the interviewer. He's not getting any engagement or response from the audience. Like, it'd be very easy to like work with the teeing up that the other guy is doing. What do you think of the fit? People on Twitter have criticized him for being one of those guys who finds one cool jacket and then doesn't accessorize with it and just puts the jacket on and thinks that that's a cool outfit when all it is a cool jacket on a bad outfit. And what do I know about fashion? I won't comment further.
Judge is going to be...
the judge is the public.
And you think that the public is going to say that Disney is making a mistake?
Yes.
And they're going to boycott Disney?
They already are.
Well, they're...
In a world where even the most objectively evil companies like Nestle or Exxon or whatever else are capable of delivering like bullshit PR statements in the face of really obvious objectively bad stuff that's come out about them, he's like shaking up there, you know? He's like they'll pay. Everyone sees what they're doing. They're making me hurt, but I'll make them hurt. Like, he sounds insane. I hope I'm not underselling this. We get so used to how crazy Elon Musk is that you forget like how out there all this behavior is. You know, it's not just him being awkward. People will say, and by the way, the amount of laundering and spinning that I have seen from Elon fans is incredible. As soon as this clip dropped on Twitter,
bro, are you really gonna try this?
Everyone was quote tweeting it, going like, "Wow, holy shit!" I quote tweeted it, and within 30 seconds of me posting it, I had about a half dozen bots or Elon fans, they're indistinguishable, who had replied saying, "I think he looks epic here," or something to that effect. Like, the an enormous effort is being made to spin his behavior here to convince you that he does not sound absolutely insane. This isn't the only bit of the interview we're going to watch. There's actually a worse bit, if you can believe it. Hold on. This is the part that I quote tweeted.
Now, obviously, you know that there's a public perception that, and you're clarifying this now, but there's a public perception that that was part of a apology tour, if you will. That this had been said online. There was all of the criticism. There was advertisers leaving. We talked to Bob Iger today.
I hope they stop.
You hope?
Don't advertise.
You don't want them to advertise?
No.
What do you mean?
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go f yourself.
So, the business model of Twitter is to make money off of advertisers. And he is describing choosing not to do that as blackmailing. He doesn't seem to understand what his own business model is. Also, take a look at his body language. Take a look.
What the fuck do you mean? He's obviously getting blackmailed. What?
Look at the way he says stuff. Just the way he talks. Look at this again. Like, watch. It's like you're watching an animatronic. Is this actually like a surprise test of the Tesla bot? Is this like you know, are we showcasing?
You don't.
Bosch body language expert, dude. People like read online one day that a lot of like forensic body analysis experts are bullshit, and then they decided like, oh, I guess like there's nothing you can learn from looking at a person. Like, I've read that these like bullshit like you know, propaganda laundering, you know, like, oh, the way their hands move means they're not. And meanwhile, meanwhile Elon is moving like this, and it's like, oh wow, you're really leaning into that pseudoscience there by saying that behavior looks odd, you know, like maybe he's just cold. Please.
Don't want them to advertise?
No.
What do you mean?
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go f yourself.
Hear the murmuring in the audience? Again, I need you to understand, okay? This is a owner of a media company saying, go f yourself if you are not going to advertise on my platform. Have you in your life ever heard any person who represents a company talk like this? Because I never have.
But go f yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is. Hey, Bob. If you're in the audience.
Bob Iger.
Well, let me ask you then.
He's referring to Bob Iger. Again, this is like a complete psychological meltdown here. This whole interview is supposed to be like an opportunity for him to level his image out after openly siding with Nazis on the platform he controls. And he's essentially, he's having a meltdown, and he's like, oh, all you people who don't want to have your ads appear next to me defending Nazis, yourself. You're blackmailing me. You're killing this company. Let the people decide. History will vindicate me.
What did you say?
That's how I feel.
Huh?
So
Nothing. I just wish you do drunk streaming sometime.
How do you think that...
Are they laughing with or at him? There's no applause. You hear any applause?
Bro,
you can't act this way as a corporate representative, you know?
Otherwise
like he's doing a Kanye West bit. This is not laughing with him. Otherwise they'd be laughing and applauding because they know.
Bro, this game is getting way too intense. What?
I said you're such a trip, bro. You're good. Keep doing your thing, Jason. I'm not making fun of you or anything.
I want to go into here, take this so that this guy isn't making as much. Fucking shit.
Oh, that he's trying to do this big, like, you know, glorious Braveheart, you know, rally against the oppressive Bob Iger, Disney, whatever. They're laughing because he's ridiculous. Because he's ridiculous.
No,
it's insane.
I don't think so.
It's like, it's nervous, like, is he insane laughter, you know?
About the economics of X. If part of the underlying model, at least today, and maybe it needs to shift, maybe the answer is it needs to shift away from advertising.
This is where we cut in before.
if you believe that this is the one part of your business where you will be beholden to those who have this view, what do you do?
F-Y.
F1.
I understand that, but there's a reality too.
F-Y.
View. What do you do?
F-Y.
I understand that, but there's a reality too.
Fuck you.
Right?
GFY, go f yourself. His like childish laugh after he says this, the audience barely even engaging with it. That's all he has to say. Again, he's being teed up for victories here, and all he has to say is, no, you.
Oh, man.
I understand that, but there's a reality too.
I can
Right?
probably... I could probably win this, but I'd be risking it if I...
Absolutely. So
This guy is literally like, you are sitting next to the CEO who you appointed to like run shit because you're an optics nightmare, and you're just sitting up here like doing your like your Hitler downfall speech over Bob Iger.
So,
all right, should I go into there? And then...
Actually,
this is like a full-on mental breakdown. Yes, it is, and I will guarantee, everyone who is watching this who doubts me when I say that, you will believe me when I show you the next tweet after we're done with this one.
What this advertising boycott is going to do is it's going to kill the company.
And do you think that
and the whole world will know that those advertisers killed the company, and we will document it in great detail.
So yeah, that's it. That's his response. That's his engagement here. His engagement is, I don't apologize for agreeing with Nazis. Everyone, I am the victim here. Everyone who isn't advertising with me, go f yourself. You. If you're watching this, I hate all of you. You're destroying us. You're killing us, and the world will know. The world is watching, Bob Iger. Everyone is seeing how you're not giving me money to run ads on my platform. That... And the interviewer just keeps giving him time and time again, keeps giving him an opportunity to level the ship, to go like, okay, well seriously though, like he literally said, but like in reality, okay, so like what's your business model going forward? And what does Elon say? They're killing the company. He doesn't even have a business model going forward. Can you imagine being a Tesla investor and seeing the guy whose image props up your entire brand do this? And go, and literally Elon Musk to just be like, no, we don't have a strategy, you know, like it's a complete freak out. No, Somniostatic, I watched a portion of the full thing. This is the worst part in my opinion, but there's a lot of really bad shit there too. Oh, there's also this. Was it this one? No, this one. Classic.
So I will simply not pander. And Jonathan, like, the only reason I'm here is because you are a friend. Like, what was my speaking fee? See, you're not making any... First of all, I'm Andrew, but, yeah, sorry, it's okay. Second of all, we've known each other for...
Incredible. Again, this is the guy who's trying to tee him up, and he says, you're not making any sense. By the way, you got my name wrong. Mental breakdown. Genuinely, I think he's dissociating a little. Yes, I genuinely think he's having a psychotic break, and I am about to prove it to you. I am about to prove it to you. Are you ready? Insane. Insane. He didn't shave his entire face. As somebody who has spent his entire life shaving, the idea of doing a clean shave and missing this much hair under the edge of your jaw, below your ear, this is like a cartoon drawing of a mental breakdown, okay? Let me explain to you how bad this is, okay? First of all, as anyone who shaves constantly, as anybody who has spent their life shaving, which he has, by the way, he has, more so than I do, you know? I have a beard, he doesn't. The amount of mental slippage necessary to miss that is insane. That's not like some stubble or whatever. That's a solid like third of an inch of hair right there, okay? This is not something that you could miss easily.
I like how he's
you
just
couldn't miss it
poking fun
easily
at
with
him.
a straight razor or with an electric razor or anything.
Not
yeah, that's
shaving.
a tuft of hair
Well,
right there, okay?
okay.
This is showing up to an interview without your pants. But it doesn't stop there, okay? First of all, I would argue that forgetting, like making a mistake like that in and of itself is indicative of like a severe we're not talking about somebody who's going to the grocery store, okay? This guy is going out to a New York Times like financial interview. Like he's the wealthiest man on earth. He's here to defend his company and promote his like grand like Hitler downfall speech bullshit to an audience of he knows will be millions of people. This is not something you can forget in that environment. It's genuinely like forgetting your pants going to school. It's a joke that if you actually did it would make people really worried about you. If you actually did forget your pants when going out to do something, that wouldn't be like a laughable moment. People would be very worried about your mental state because it's about that difficult to forget to do something like that. Also, another big point here, that means nobody looked over him before he went out there. Before you do an appearance on TV, before you do anything in a professional setting,
did he get that or not?
Look over you. This is so, like, universal. It happened to me before I talked to Congressman Sunak in D.C. Like, anytime cameras are about to be on you, somebody will be there to make sure you look all right before they turn on. The fact that he went out there with that patch of hair.
I've got to build this one up to like 100 and something.
Just curious, how many more friends are we shopping for?
This massive. Oh, did I say Sunak? Ro Khanna, sorry. Did I think Rishi Sunak? Yeah, the fact that he went out there with that tuft of hair means that nobody looked over him. Yeah, to think that I'd made that mistake while criticizing the appearance of an African man. I know. They didn't care. No. If anybody's job was to look over Elon Musk's appearance before he got sent out there to anything regarding like makeup or lighting or anything, if they had seen this and not done anything, that would have been their job.
Yes.
My personal opinion, he shooed them off. Like, there were people who were trying to go over him to make sure that he was presentable for the cameras, and he went, no. Guarantee you that's what happened, 100%. And this is insane. Insane bullshit. If your job is like front-facing media work, the idea of being able to miss something like that and then shoot people away whose job it is to cover for those mistakes, mental break. I full on mean it, mental break. I don't know, Vosh, there are many people who would do his makeup and all, assuming this was... No, they didn't. Because if people were there to do his makeup, they would have seen this and freaked out. Do you have any idea how big and evident of a mistake this is? Like, anyone who's there to do makeup, and then they see this, that's like a code red. Maybe make a video about ketamine. I don't think it's a ketamine thing. Was he acting like he was on ketamine? Calm down, it's not that bad. No, I think that you're insane if you disagree with what I'm saying here. This is ridiculous. I think that people who disagree with me on this are just ignorant of the processes that are that go behind, like, doing work in front of TV, you know? Like, plenty of people go on TV on ketamine or cocaine or whatever. This isn't just drugs. This is a mental break. Isn't part of his brand being a bit of a slubby bro? Not like this. Bosch, missing a spot while shaving does not mean you're having a mental break. I feel like you're being sort of deliberately ignorant here, okay? But let me go over this one more time, okay? Missing a spot like that on its own is insane. If you shave every day or even every week, you have this down to muscle memory. Up shaving when you are 60 years old on a big visible patch is wild, okay? A big, visible, easy to feel patch. This is like, I need you to understand. Like, you're 16, you've shaved 3 times, so you don't understand. Like, you get used to it, okay? Absolutely wild at the face of things, especially before a big TV appearance where you're going to be defending yourself in a pretty heated situation. So there's all of that for one. Then there's the fact that he would have had to have shooed off people whose job it would have been to look over him, like makeup and lights and what have you. He would have had to have shooed them off because otherwise they would have immediately pointed that out. Dub shaving is literally a trope to show off mental state. That's why I'm saying, like, it's a cartoonish example of how like mentally degenerated a person is. Bosh, you're reading way too much into this. I genuinely think that you're ignorant if you believe that. You have no idea fuck, I feel like the people in chat who disagree are either women or 16, so they don't understand, like, how many, like, links in the chain have to break for this to happen. Like, there's a reason this doesn't happen. There's a reason why in all of the thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of casual appearances that you've seen from world leaders, business people, and what have you, you don't randomly see people like that with that much power on big, like, mainline productions have patches of unshaved hair under their ear. In fact, you never see it. It never happens. Like, ever. Ever. Because there are systems in place to make sure powerful people are always presentable when they do stuff like this. I think you're onto something, but it's because of your autistic fixation on fashion appearance. Most people wouldn't walk through these steps to think about it, so they think you're overanalyzing. Yeah, I guess that maybe I've sort of delegitimized myself here by caring about appearance. So it's like, oh, he's just being like hyper fastidious or whatever. There's a reason people with dementia still shave. Yeah. Except for Boris Johnson, where it's deliberate. Boris Johnson had his look very carefully curtailed by his team. He looked disheveled on purpose. This is not on purpose. Nobody has a tuft of unshaved hair under their ear on purpose. There's no, like, positive association with that. Then how do you explain Trump going on TV looking like that? Exact same way. Trump has plenty of makeup and hair people. He's just going for a different appearance, you know? The makeup and hair bit that he does may look ridiculous, and it does, but it is deliberately cultivated. It's not an accident. Plenty of people oversee that, you know? That spot is horrible to get TBH. No, it's not. It's fine. It's very easy. I work for Germany's biggest TV broadcaster. This is not normal. Vosh is right. Anyone who knows anything about broadcasting or what goes into getting a person on TV in front of a camera will agree that I'm right. This is something for which only ignorance can let you disagree with me. Because you've never done that, so you think like, oh, you know, it's like, well, he made a mistake. That doesn't happen. That does not happen. I understand what you're saying, but at the end of the day, these are still people that can make mistakes. Yeah, and some mistakes are more indicative of like loss of mental health than others. And again, it's not just one person; it's multiple people. You telling me a makeup crew missed that? Like the makeup crew that definitely were there to assist Elon Musk in making sure that he looked good before that didn't see that? Are they blind? Is it a blind makeup crew? Chad thinks of it like leaving your fly down. Yeah, I feel like I'm overselling the point on this one. But whatever the case is, I know I'm right. So you know. Anyway. We don't know what happens with the imaginary makeup crew. I know what happened with the imaginary makeup crew. Elon Musk shooed them away. They went over to him and said, hey, Elon, let's touch up your appearance. And he said, no, and he shooed them away. I mean, Jesus, look at how he looks. You think a makeup team looked over him? A makeup team definitely approached him, because makeup teams always approach people before you go in front of a camera. That's their job. They have a very important job. He really does look like a 90s era lesbian. Yeah. He looks like a Fishman from Innsmouth. It's pretty bad, yeah. Sheesh. Do you think Elon's had Botox done? He's definitely had work done, yeah, for sure. Vosh, I think chat doesn't realize how often makeup teams touch up people like this. It's basically anytime you're on a camera, it's so ubiquitous, it's almost invisible. Yeah. It's like when you're, especially when you're Elon Musk, world's wealthiest man, about to go on like a New York Times interview. Basically, what happens is you're in the production room behind the actual interview set, like behind the curtains or wherever they're staging it, you know? And there will be a team of at least 2, but probably more in the ballpark of like 3 or 4, depending on like how long they have with you, whose job it is to make sure you look immaculate and like apply concealer and do everything possible. They will be with you basically the whole time until they've decided that you're presentable enough for TV, and they'll be on standby in case anything happens to your appearance. They'll check up on you before you go out there, and during breaks, like when the cameras will turn off like in between sessions for a TV show or whatever, they will go out there and touch you up. They're like an omnipresent force in TV production. They do like touch-ups and checks and stuff. It's impossible for them to miss a patch of hair under the ear, which means that he had to have shooed them away, which is an insane thing to do when you're about to do this big speech on how Bob Iger is personally destroying your company to turn away the people whose job it is to physically make you look better. It's something one could only do if they were having a mental breakdown or incredibly high or both, which I think the case here is both. Yeah, Killjoy 40K, his stilted facial expression making is probably a combination of some kind of recent plastic surgery and incredible nervousness, though it could be one or the other. This is something you get denied a job over. Oh, for sure, for sure. Next, I'll talk about it for 20 more minutes if I want to, you pieces of shit. Jesus, he looks bad. Did you see the Cope response from Linda Yaccarino? Oh yeah, let's take a look at that.
That was a lot.
Today, Elon Musk gave a wide-ranging and candid interview at DealBook 2023. Oh, DealBook Summit. Okay, that's what it was. Oh yeah, the New York Times DealBook stuff. Okay, I thought it was a New York Times thing. It says so right here. Yeah. He also offered an apology. Oh, dude, you know it has to hurt Elon. After all this happened, like they had a conversation behind the scenes, and she was like, "We have to frame this as an apology." And he was like, "I don't apologize for anything." And she's like, "Okay, but we like seriously have to here. Please, God, look at the books." X is enabling an information independence that's uncomfortable for some people. We're a platform that allows people to make their own decisions. And here's my perspective when it comes to advertising. Twitter is standing at a unique and amazing intersection of free speech and Main Street. Yeah, this is the kind of like corpo bullshit speak that you would expect given this position, but he, again, just insane behavior here. Truly incredible stuff. Twitter CEO in damage control mode after Musk tells fleeing advertisers to go f yourself. Musk on Thursday commented precisely in response to someone who posted remarks of independent journalist Glenn Greenwald, who said in a part, "What went wrong here is not what Elon Musk said. It's so revealing that so many journalists are aghast that anyone would dare tell Disney and major corporations to go f yourself when they're trying to limit, censor, and control the flow of political content. If you aren't willing to say that to corporations who are trying to limit what you can say, don't bother calling yourself a journalist." Actually, free speech is when you legally and socially compel corporations to continue doing business with you after your company owner agrees with Nazis. Please look at this clip too. F it, why not? Are we assuming this is legitimate insanity though? No, I do think that he's having a mental break. That's not just my opinion. Like, people who worked with Elon Musk literally said, like, that he was like mentally unstable and they were worried he would harm himself after he locked himself in his office.
Company and the New York Times newspaper, it appeared over the summer to be throttled. The New York Times.
Well, we do require that that everyone has to buy a subscription, and we don't make exceptions for anyone. And I think if I want the New York Times, I have to pay for a subscription, and they don't give me a free subscription. So I'm not going to give them a free subscription.
But were you throttling the New York Times relative to other news organizations, relative to everybody else? Was it specific to the Times?
They didn't buy a subscription.
I love my pro-free speech king. Yeah, they didn't pay.
It only costs like $1,000 a month. So if they just do that, then they're back in the saddle.
So desperate for money, dude.
But you are saying that it was throttled.
No, I'm saying.
Was there a conversation that you had with somebody? You said, "Look, I'm unhappy with the Times. They should either be buying the subscription, or I don't like their content, or whatever."
Any organization that refuses to buy a subscription is not going to be recommended.
Zapier's automation is the easiest way to efficiently grow your business. Get a lead from a campaign, automatically add it to your CRM, and send a message to a salesperson so they can close the deal faster. Automation isn't magic, it's Zapier. Get started for free.
I'm even breathing, I flow just like a breeze is in a
But then, what does that say about free speech? And what does that say about amplifying
free speech is not
certain
exactly
voices?
free. It costs a little bit.
Right, but that's it. But that's an interesting.
Yes, again, like, watch the entire interview for more bangers like this. Honestly, it's so bad, dude. I want Elon Musk to be on television like 24/7 because this guy is like a self-optics landmine. He's like an optics suicide bomber. Incredible.
You know, it's like an.
Oh damn it! I didn't mean to do that.
They say, freedom isn't free. It costs $1.05 or whatever. But it's pretty cheap. Okay. It's low cost freedom.
Fuck it.
Remarkable. Yeah. I don't say this lightly, but I genuinely think like his story is one of those that could end in suicide. Like, normally people like Elon Musk could have done a million things to keep it from going to where it's gone, or they could have been like cynical in ways that would allow them to sort of take the money and run. Not him, man. No. He genuinely, sincerely seems to be absolutely losing his shit. Dude, I can't believe I did the Rokana Rishi Sunak thing. That's so embarrassing. My brain literally did the like name one woman, Adolf Hitler thing, where I thought like, who did I go to DC to talk to? Who did I? Well, he was the Punjabi guy, right? He's Indian. Name one Indian.
You should know that I'm about you.
I could have.
Yeah, I'm gonna lose.
I think it would have been marginally worse, but not by that much if I had said Modi. You know.
I shouldn't have broke that guy.
I think that would have been slightly.
That made it so that both of us lost.
But slightly worse and slightly funnier. Incredible stuff, truly. Make sure to donate and subscribe to this, the greatest of all political minds. I really appreciate, you know, all the faith that you guys place in me and my magnificent brain. Oh yeah, I didn't even mention how Elon Musk is now pushing.
Made it so that Red wins.
Honestly, dude, whatever. Again, like, Elon Musk is losing it, and he is desperate for any positive, like, affirmation he can get from the lunatics who still like him. So the more he does shit like this, the more unprofitable Twitter will become. Fine, whatever, honestly. That's stare, holy shit, yeah. Oh, look at that! In conversation event with Rishi Sunak. Maybe I only made the mistake because I already looked forward into the future and saw this article, and I had sort of the name transposition here, huh? What about that? What if we're dealing with a little bit, you know, there's just a little bit of chronological theory, huh? Not racist, confirmed.
Tipped me $20 for his beer and then took a drink, cut himself off, and left.
It's not like that weird. It's just kind of bug-eyed, you know? You know, looking at him here, another example of him not having a makeup team over it. Does he just not do makeup teams? Is this his roguish charm to look like shit all the time? He certainly didn't before going in front of a camera when he was down there at the southern border pretending to be some kind of sheriff. I can see the exact hairs he forgot to shave. Yeah, when was this from? November 2nd, 2023. These are the same beard hairs that he later failed to shave. Why is his nose so red? It might just be cold. I mean, he's talking to Rishi Sunak, right? So he might have just come in from the cold in the UK.
That pissed me off.
Yeah, at London. It's from crying. Let's just say that it's from crying. What if he's drinking heavily? Nah, he does ketamine. That's his shit.
What? Who does ketamine?
These are the same beard hairs that he later failed to shave. Why is his nose so red? It might just be cold. I mean, he's talking to Rishi Sunak, right? So he might have just come in from the cold in the UK. My guess. Yeah, at London.
I gotta win one
it's
game
from crying.
today.
Let's just say that it's from crying. What if he's drinking heavily? Nah, he does ketamine. That's his shit. He's a ketamine.
I need to get Immaculate Majesty when I come through. I am casually causing these casualties. You just kind of gotta find the flow that kind of like, you know.
I think if I listened to it a couple times,
Yeah,
some
dude.
freestyles. I was trying to take the lyrics I wrote off of this.
Place for your precious bundle of.
I don't think the flow's gonna match up.
What the fuck is going on here with this game? I really have it. Oh, I don't feel like playing progressive. I want to play fixed.
Ketamine boy. He's a ketaminer. Woo! Woo! Have you been celebrating? You gotta
This is pretty
celebrate
fucked
when you
up.
can, even if they came 100 years too late. Yeah, there we go. We ended politics. We did it. We ended politics. Well done, everybody. He was it. He was the guy. How about a historical recap? Poof. That. A historical recap of everything bad that Kissinger has ever done would essentially just be like, you could read his entire Wikipedia page and that wouldn't even be close to being enough. Like, look, Kissinger is
Yeah,
one
I
of
mean,
the
he's
most
100 years
evil
old.
men in
So
the world, and one of the most evil men certainly in American history. I would
Which one am I?
argue that he was
Green?
probably more morally bankrupt than like Confederate leaders. In terms of the destruction that he personally caused, he's higher than essentially anyone. I mean, in American history, I mean, like unimaginable. Behind the Bastards did an 8-part series on him alone. Yeah, go take a look at the Behind the Bastards. You know, 8-part series. All right. How does Kissinger compare to Dick Cheney? Not even remote. No. Not even remotely close. You have no idea. Kissinger is like the platonic ideal of an American chauvinist. He doesn't believe in anything. He's not a liberal. He's not a fascist. He doesn't believe in anything. The only thing that he truly believes is might makes right, and because he's on the America team, America has to win. And anything that gets done to that end is the right thing to do. That's it. That's the only belief that he has. There's no consistency to any position that he holds outside of that, you know? Andrew Jackson, I think Kissinger is significantly more evil than Andrew Jackson. You guys have no idea. Basically, like, the entire history, like the whole legacy of everything evil that America did during the Cold War, like, he's baked into that. He's like the architect of everything in the post-World War II world that made America evil. It's unbelievable. Genuinely. Al Jazeera put out a full article on just all the genocides and coups Kissinger was involved in across 10 different states. That's not even remotely comprehensive. Where's the hater post? Oh yeah, here we go. I had this one ready. Jacobin hated Henry Kissinger so much they wrote a book-length obituary years ago and commissioned 50,000 copies and just let them sit until the mother finally died. Unbelievable levels of hater. I am inspired. The good die young. The verdict on Henry Kissinger. I mean, we can look at the Al Jazeera. What do we have listed here? Let's see. Prolonging the war in Vietnam, which cost the lives of millions of people. Cambodia. Expansion of the war set the scene for the genocidal rule of the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia. Went on to kill 1/5 of the population. That's cool. Carpet bombing campaign killed hundreds of thousands of people. Bangladesh. What was then known as East Pakistan, won elections. Fearing a loss of control, military government in West Pakistan launched a murderous crackdown. Kissinger and Nixon stood staunchly behind the slaughter, choosing not to warn the generals to hold back. Kissinger was unmoved by the killing of 300,000 to 3 million people. Again, like we're talking about like death tolls in the millions, tens of millions.
All right.
Again, like
I'll make an alliance
just, like,
after
simplifying
this.
it too. There are like books worth of shit that he's said. Like, he just unimaginably evil. Sagar defended Kissinger on breaking points. Well, considering the fact that Kissinger is basically the only human ever to actually believe in America first, that makes sense to me. The funny thing is that, you know, of course, like Nixon sort of opened relations with China. Kissinger was considered a friend of China to this day, basically. Here, China's Xi Jinping. By the way, Xi Jinping, proletarian state, ally of the global proletariat, welcomes old friend Henry Kissinger in Beijing. This was from this year. So again, you know, China ally the proletariat. I'm pretty sure this means that the Chinese Communist Party is warmer to Kissinger than
You
Biden's
cunt!
administration. China likes Kissinger because Kissinger basically defended the Tiananmen Square massacre because, again, he doesn't have any real beliefs. China was like the only other country that Kissinger respected. Basically, after Mao did, let's be fair, a pretty amazing like guerrilla war campaign to take over China. You know, there's no denying Mao was an incredible military strategist, at least with regards to like insurrectionary behavior. Basically, Kissinger and Nixon were like, you know, f all these other pussies, okay? And the Soviets are run by incompetent bureaucrats. You, Mao, are strong and based in Chad and red-pilled. So I will respect you and you alone. And during their administration, they actually did like weird pro-China shit that over America too. Like they hid shit from Congress to like prioritize trade relations with China and try to like get deals for them, basically, in a manner that wasn't entirely like treasonous, but it was definitely like, you know, weird. So yeah, again, it's like the might makes right. You know, it's kind of like how authoritarians in one country like authoritarians in other countries. It's like you know, his only belief was that his side should win, but because his side was the strong, he thought of China being like kind of on his side, you know? China also aided the US and CIA in Angola and Vietnam, and in Cambodia, no? That was a sort of a shared, you know. I've seen some Germans today say that the left's rejoicing about Kissinger's death is just another sign of the left's anti-Semitism. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I saw this, the ADL post, because ADL would support Adolf Hitler if Adolf Hitler was a Zionist, which I guess to an extent early on he was. From the ADL, Henry Kissinger was a towering intellect, a diplomat and a practitioner who, not without controversy, helped shape American foreign policy with a lasting impact. A refugee from Nazi Germany, blah blah. Anyway, in a very funny turn, They community notes him. During a meeting of the Washington Special Actions Group, Kissinger said, "If it were not for the accident of my birth, I would be anti-Semitic. Any people who have been prosecuted for 2,000 years must be doing something wrong," which is literally like a Nazi line. Like, oh, see how they kept getting kicked out of European countries? Must be something up with those guys. And he believed that, and the only reason he didn't consider himself an anti-Semite was because he was Jewish, which again, perfectly indicative of how he had no moral positions. He didn't have any morality. He had no like ethical system. It was literally just might makes right, my side must win. That's it. Because he's a Jew, you know, he must like defend the Jewish people. You know, it's a sort of extension of Western hegemony. But that's it. Like that's the only reason, you know? Yeah, his morality was the United States of America. Nixon called him Jew boy to his face. I'm sure Nixon called him much worse stuff than that. Hillary Clinton considered him a close personal friend. Yeah, that's one of the things that makes Henry Kissinger so evil. Henry Kissinger morally is up there with genuinely like whatever the peg below Hitler is. It's really difficult.
I
to
could
describe,
take out
like, his
purple right
absolute
now,
comfort
but I'm not going to.
with mass murder. Just no shit giving, and for no reason too. You know, purely as a product of his support for Western hegemony and American chauvinism. Barely even Western hegemony. He didn't like Europe either. He just liked America and China. Yeah, purely for the love of the game. You know, this is like a 99% Hitler particle individual. But one of the things that makes him so insidious is that since his term, other politicians and administrations have basically just treated him as like a great diplomat and head of state. Like, there wasn't even this big reckoning after he left where people were like, you know, maybe we should be a little bit more scrutinous of the genocidal mass murderer who was the Secretary of State under the president who, you know, had to resign because he was being investigated for the Watergate scandal. Like, maybe, I wonder if there was something more to that. But no, since then,
is this progressive or
okay?
No, it's fixed.
To invite him to the White House. They have claimed him to be like a friend, a personal friend. They've bragged about their association with Kissinger. Back in 2016, when Bernie was campaigning, he said like that he was proud to not call Kissinger a friend, and that was like unique and different to say like I am not a friend of 99% Hitler. You know, like you know that's how low the bar is. It's an indication, if nothing else, that like politics aside, the engine of American empire is capable of permitting basically any and all evil, as long as it's done in the service of America. Nowadays, people will say, you know, even politicians will say, oh yeah, the Vietnam War was a quagmire, oh, the Vietnam War was a mistake, you know, but they'll never actually critically examine anything that led to it or any of the people who sort of produced it or engage with them or denounce them in any way, because they don't like ultimately care. They don't actually care, you know? And we're seeing it happen right now. It's happening right now in the Gaza Strip, you know? My favorite quote from Anthony Bourdain: once you've been to Cambodia, you'll never want to stop. You'll never stop wanting to beat Henry Kissinger to death with your bare hands. Yeah, I remember that episode. I think that was an episode that was, right? Yeah. Clip of Bernie Sanders saying he's not a friend of Kissinger. Sure, we'll watch it. We'll watch it.
I don't get what you did there. That was weird.
Secretary and I have
Oh, he took that guy out.
In the last debate, I believe in her book, very good book. In her book and in this last debate, she talked about getting the approval or the support or the mentoring of Henry Kissinger. Now, I find it rather amazing because I happen to believe that Henry Kissinger was one of the most destructive secretaries of state in the modern history of this country.
The most destructive, of course. Like, there's no other Secretary of State is within like even an order of magnitude of Henry Kissinger in terms of monstrousness. But you know.
I am proud to say that Henry Kissinger is not my friend. I will not take advice from Henry Kissinger. And in fact, Kissinger's actions in Cambodia, when the United States bombed that country, overthrew Prince Sihanouk, created the instability for Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge to come in, who then butchered some 3 million innocent people, one of the worst genocides in the history of the world. So count me in as somebody who will not be listening to Henry Kissinger.
Emma and Nat Lech in the Majority Report phrased it, saying that what killed him was seeing the possibility of the genocide in Gaza being halted for longer. Oh, you're saying that the temporary humanitarian pause in the Gaza Strip was what killed him. Like, he was being fueled sort of by death, by lich energy, and the, you know, a very brief halt to the genocide was all it did to do him in. That makes sense. That fits in with my belief system. Yeah. You can seriously argue that Kissinger was the most destructive American ever. Yeah. With regards to foreign policy, absolutely there's no compare. If you want to include, like, every American, I guess you'd have to start including, like, politicians who did stuff regarding, like, slavery. That being said, I struggle to imagine if any single human did as much bad with regards to slavery, in America, I mean, that Kissinger did with foreign policy. I strongly encourage all of you to listen to the Behind the Bastards on him, or to just, like, spend
He's going in.
days reading up his
That's fucking
Wikipedia,
hilarious.
and it's unbelievable. Andrew Jackson with the Native American genocides may be comparable on the domestic front. Maybe, like, genuinely, maybe. Because a lot of, what's worth pointing out too is that one of the things that makes Kissinger so unique is that he personally did a lot of this, you know? Like, it wasn't like there was a big political movement and he sort of led it. He was the Secretary of State, and he engineered a lot of this shit directly, you know? Even people like Andrew Jackson, dude, even people like Hitler had, like, broad movements of which they were figureheads. There's something so unique about Kissinger. He could have been anything else. And I'm not saying that American chauvinism wasn't, like, a pre-existing political force that he was a part of, but there's something very, very unique to the extent to which he personally orchestrated a lot of this, you know? Like, I guess a good example of it would be, like, when people say stuff like Hitler did X, it's usually slightly euphemistic. What it actually means is, like, Hitler led an effort to do X, but there was, like, a group of politicians and bureaucrats, and, like it was a group effort because, you know, it was a country. Like, Hitler led a country. That was what made him so destructive. But a lot of the stuff that Kissinger did seemed to be just him, like, out of pocket, you know? Like, he just, like, kicked that ball rolling down the hill. Does that make any sense? I don't want to minimize anything else. I hope people understand that, like, Henry Kissinger wasn't just, like, a bad politician. He was the most evil man. He was a total moral nihilist who was just given the ability to do anything he wanted. And what he wanted was millions dead. And he got it, you know, he got it in spades. Like, he could have been, like, anything else, you know? Would it be worse if he ran for president? Actually, I think that as president, he would have been a lot less destructive. Kissinger was an unpleasant, uncharismatic, unattractive man. And having all of his shit thrown into the forefront like that, rather than having it be laundered by Nixon and Nixon's charisma. And Nixon was a very smart guy, too. So, you know, he knew when to lie and when to cut the fuck up. Lead poisoning is said to have killed over 100 million people. Lead poisoning isn't a guy. Yeah, does anyone remember, that Justice League cartoon or whatever? Do you have any idea how much power I would need to give up to be president? Yeah. Mr. Lead B poisoning, yeah. John poisoning. You, Bosch, I personally understudied Mr. Lead. Yeah. Everyone says Kissinger was Rizless, but if I recall correctly, his sexual body count was almost as high as his genocidal body count. I think there's probably a pretty big difference between the kind of charisma that you can, like, get tail as a politician and the kind of charisma that lets you explain to the American people why you're okay with what the Khmer Rouge is doing. But, you know, whatever. Anyway, you know, it's not good. He and Nixon had sex? Yes. Obviously. It's also worth noting that everything he did was done through back channels. He never ran any of this shit through Congress. No. He and Nixon conspired to do an unbelievable amount of shit in the least transparent way possible. Through Congress, past the American people. Nixon and Kissinger shared one, like, major trait which allowed them to work together, and it's that neither of them believed in democracy. They were both very intelligent and insanely contemptuous of the common man for this. They thought that the average American was an idiot. I assume Nixon was still salty because he lost to JFK because JFK was handsome because TV had just been invented. Like, he was pretty mad about that. It wasn't just they didn't believe in democracy, they were insanely contemptuous of it. I am fully sure that if they could have gotten away with it, they would have believed more in, like, a monarchy or like an indefinite dictatorship ruled by them in terms of like leading the country. There's a Kissinger quote where he says the issues are too important to be left to the voter. He was anti-democracy all the way. Yeah. He wasn't subtle about it. But doesn't that mean he's kind of right? No. Not even a little. Why the administration's going forward to worship him so much? Because no matter what your ideology is, in America, the presumed, like, underlying ideology of every presidential administration has been American superiority and Western hegemony. To challenge Kissinger is to challenge the idea that anything is justifiable if it supports American empire. And that is not a challengeable position, or at least it's difficult to challenge, you know? Like, so many people, like, if you want to believe in a deep state, like, he was at the root of it. At least he was part of the root, you know? American elites love Kissinger. This is why a lot of people hate the USA. No. It's not why a lot of people hate the USA. Kissinger is hate of the USA. Kissinger is responsible for, like, when you hear about why people outside of America hate the USA, they just start describing shit Kissinger did. He wasn't just like, oh, you know, like, here's the reason why. Like, he is why. Not to say America would have been phenomenal if Kissinger and Nixon, you know, hadn't been leaders or whatever, but, like, holy shit, this guy is, like, you know... Yeah, which is, of course, an indication of the fact that, like, as smart as Kissinger was, and he was, you know, he was also a moron. If you actually believe in, like, American hegemony and American strength, you wouldn't have antagonized the rest of the world that way. He was a bully, you know? He might makes right, so, like, America is strong, so America should crush the weak, and trample the world, you know? It is our right because we're strong. Which is actually a really, really, really bad strategy for long-term, you know, stability. So we now have to deal with, you know, some very legitimate global hatred of the United States for stuff that we did, because for, you know, the Kissinger, so I can say the Kissinger administration, but, like, yeah, basically, you know, sort of laid the groundwork for our inability to cooperate with the rest of the world.
Oh yeah.
Attack face, boom.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds. As owner of Mint Mobile, my goal is to spend as little as possible on things like commercials, so we can pass more savings to customers. When I saw what they're charging for holiday-themed stock videos these days, well, you can see what I decided to do. And that means we can afford to offer 3 months of free service on any plan, including unlimited. So let's all just use our imaginations, okay? Just imagine me someplace festive. Don't make it
Pochita.
I'm the type who seldom flushes my feces.
That's nasty.
$337,000. Tell us the story briefly.
In 1970, in Analog magazine, Harlan Ellison and Ben Bova published the short story Brillo. Ellison's one of the most famous writers in history, but Bova's no slouch.
What is he doing there?
Soon became editor of Analog, where he was beloved and won the Hugo Award for Best Professional Editor 6 times. This isn't one of his. He accepted this one on behalf of George R.R. Martin, whose career he started. George couldn't make it. He was running a chess tournament at the time. Writers used to have fun. Now we just complain about Twitter. On Twitter. Brillo was about the world's first robot police officer. His name's Brillo because Brillo pads are metal fuzz. That's pretty good. This is one of the earliest stories in fiction about a robot cop, a commonplace trope today, and soon in real life. It wasn't the first example. The most famous earlier one would be Isaac Asimov's Caves of Steel. Remember this, it will come up later. Ellison and Bova thought the idea had legs and decided to adapt it into a TV show. They pitched the idea to a few companies, including NBC, where an executive named Terry Keegan said no. They later showed Brillo to Paramount, where the head of development, Terry Keegan, he'd recently been hired there, said no. The same man passed on the same pitch twice at 2 companies. Clearly not a fan of the robot cop idea. 6 months later, Terry Keegan sold a show called Future Cop to ABC. It's a show about a robot cop.
He's an android, a robot, the perfect cop.
Our boys realize they've been ripped off.
When I saw it,
I wanted to file
I don't
immediately.
like these people.
My attorney said, forget it, man. He said 90% of all plagiarism suits the plaintiff loses. Besides, these guys will kill you. You'll never work in this town again.
They spend years finding a lawyer willing to sue a giant television conglomerate, despite the cost and the possibility of being blacklisted from working in television. In his deposition, Keegan claims he never read Brillo, an obvious lie. It was later discovered the memos proving he deliberately ripped them off had been burned. The jury found in favor of Ellison and Bova and awarded them $337,000 in damages, about $1.2 million today. Ellison used some of the money to put up a billboard across the street from the studio reading, "Writers, don't let them steal from you. Keep their hands out of your pockets." Or at least he said he was going to in interviews at the time, and later journalism claims it happened, but I can't find any pictures, which is a shame. Either way, they still made off with all that delicious money. Yum yum.
I've been waiting 4 years for this moment. 4 years. To tell other writers they can fight them and beat them.
So, what's all that about? Okay, you know that trick video essayists use where they open on a semi-related example that sets the stage for the wider topic? It's a classic, I do it all the time. I wanted to open on a recent example of a writer winning a plagiarism lawsuit and getting their day in court. But there isn't one. This ancient case, which took place over a decade before I, and statistically you, were even born, is still the best, most recent, and almost only example. Ellison and Bova are among the few writers to ever see financial compensation for their work being stolen. Oh, this always happens. Testing, 1, 2, 3. For the foreseeable future, if someone else on here steals your work for money, there's not much you can do except talk about it. A few years ago, I made a video with some examples of plagiarism and even covered a time I felt it happened to me. The guy in question, Lukey Poo, briefly posted a 10-minute response accusing me of overreacting before appearing to think better of the whole thing.
Shoot.
Woo! Woo! Have you been celebrating? You gotta take the dubs when you can, even if...
We dare you to find a place where you experience some twists.
Yeah, I did see this. That Israel knew about the.
What are we talking about right
now?
That's right. Israel apparently had Hamas's attack plan for over a year. And what did they do? Well, they said, they can't do that. They don't have the smoke. They're f***ing animals. They would never dare, or rather, they don't have the capabilities. Well, it turns out they do have the capabilities. Very 9/11-like. Israel is America. Continued. Literally, I've said this already. Israel is basically an extension of America, but like, oh my God, this is the most America that could have ever happened. What is more America than having your own 9/11 happen in identical ways almost? And yes, by the way, this is a big I told you so moment. I told you this was arrogance. I told you this was racist hubris, and it precisely is the case.
The ceasefire is ended. Combat operations resumed overnight after Israel accused Hamas of violating the truce and warned residents to leave parts of southern Gaza. Plus, there is a new report that claims Israel had an intelligence report about the Hamas attack months before October 7th, but dismissed the report. Chief Global Affairs anchor Martha Raddatz has been tracking this overnight. She joins us now from Washington. Good morning, Martha.
Good morning, George. From the moment the attack on Israel began, it was clear this was a massive intelligence and military failure on the part of the Israelis. But this report, which dropped overnight, spells it out in horrifying detail. This morning, the horrors of October 7th, the lapses in security, the planning by Hamas laid out in a stunning report. The New York Times saying that Israeli officials had the Hamas battle plan in their hands for more than a year before hundreds of Hamas fighters stormed into Israel.
No, it is so 9/11, it blows my
Streaming.
mind. It is so identical to
Yeah.
9/11. Like, think about it this way. A group of militants that you have radicalized, that you have funded,
I don't know
turning
about Gilligan's,
around
but
and
I'll go
switching
axe
its
throwing.
crosshairs towards you, and then openly
All right.
signaling under your watchful eye, because Israel
All right, I'll see
occupies both the West Bank and Gaza as well. Under your watchful eye, they're training and then experiencing that blowback, and then
JJ's working right now.
as an immediate consequence.
JJ's
after
working
this
right now.
blowback happens that you foresaw for
Yeah.
a year and didn't do anything about it because you're racist and you're
Yeah.
arrogant, and then you turn around and 10x, 100x the violence, identical.
All right, sounds good. Who you with?
More than 1,200 people. But the Times says the Hamas plan was dismissed by the Israelis, who believed it would be too difficult for Hamas.
No, man, I don't think they intentionally ignored it. You guys are wrong, dude. I don't know. I don't think that they intentionally ignored it. I am more predisposed to believing, and I don't even believe America intentionally ignored 9/11, but I am way more confident in potentially America intentionally ignoring it than Israel. No, there is no need to think about this as anything but sheer arrogance.
To carry out. According to the Times, Israeli military obtained a 40-page Hamas document last year, which they codenamed Jericho Wall.
Yeah, I need to go back and start listening to this again since I was on the phone.
Drones to knock out the security cameras.
This shit is crazy.
Is America continue literally? I've said this already. Israel is basically an extension of America, but like, oh my God, this is the most America that could have ever happened. What is more America than having your own 9/11 happen in identical ways almost? And yes, by the way, this is a big I told you so moment. I told you this was arrogance. I told you this was racist hubris, and it precisely is the case.
The ceasefire is ended. Combat operations resumed overnight after Israel accused Hamas of violating the truce and warned residents to leave parts of southern Gaza. Plus, there is a new report that claims Israel had an intelligence report about the Hamas attack months before October 7th, but dismissed the report. Chief Global Affairs anchor Martha Raddatz has been tracking this overnight. She joins us now from Washington. Good morning, Martha.
Good morning, George. From the moment the attack on Israel began, it was clear this was a massive intelligence and military failure on the part of the Israelis. But this report, which dropped overnight, spells it out in horrifying detail. This morning, the horrors of October 7th, the lapses in security, the planning by Hamas laid out in a stunning report.
I don't want to talk my...
Times saying that Israeli officials had the Hamas battle plan in their hands for more than a year before hundreds of Hamas fighters stormed into Israel.
No, it is so 9/11, it blows my mind. It is so identical to 9/11. Like, think about it this way. A group of militants that you have radicalized, that you have funded, turning around and switching its crosshairs towards you, and then openly signaling under your watchful eye, because Israel occupies both the West Bank and Gaza as well. Under your watchful eye, they're training and then experiencing that blowback and then quintupling the violence as an immediate consequence after this blowback happens that you foresaw for a year and didn't do anything about it because you're racist and you're arrogant. And then you turn around and 10x, 100x the violence. Identical.
And slaughtered more than 1,200 people. But the Times says the Hamas plan was dismissed by the Israelis, who believed it would be too difficult for Hamas.
No, man, I don't think they intentionally ignored it. You guys are wrong, dude. I don't think that they intentionally ignored it. I am more predisposed to believing, and I don't even believe America intentionally ignored 9/11, but I am way more confident in potentially America intentionally ignoring it than Israel. No, there is no need to think about this as anything but sheer arrogance.
To carry out. According to the Times, Israeli military
obtained a
40-page Hamas document last year, which they codenamed Jericho Wall, calling for a barrage of rockets at the outset of the attack, drones to knock out the security cameras, and automated machine guns along the border. Nearly the exact scenario that played out on October 7th. The Times saying Israeli intelligence...
Chat, the reason why I say it's sheer arrogance and I don't ascribe like a much larger conspiracy to this and I just look at it and I say it's simply sheer arrogance is because the Financial Times report that we read showed us something very important about the mindset of the IDF. Right? Remember in 2018 where Islamic Jihad posted videos of the commanders within the IDF where they had trained sniper rifle crosshairs on them and they posted videos without killing them, right? Saying like, watch what you do. We always have our eyes on you even when you think you're safe. And how did they look at that? Oh, they're so afraid of us. Like what was Israel's assumption in that matter? Not, oh my God, this motherfucker just posted a photo of my house directly at me under my phone number. Their response wasn't to go, oh my God, that's terrifying. What the hell are we doing? Their response was, oh, they're so afraid of us that they simply dare not pull the trigger. You cannot have this mentality unless you are the most racist person on the planet. I'm telling you, it's sheer arrogance. That's it.
Today we're going to talk about what melatonin is and why you should consider an alternative instead. Melatonin is a hormone made by the pineal gland in your brain. It's basically the messenger that announces bedtime to our brains. Darkness stimulates its release into the bloodstream while light inhibits it. Our bodies naturally produce endogenous melatonin. What you see on the store shelves is synthesized exogenous melatonin. In 2001, researchers at MIT concluded that the correct dosage of melatonin
Motherfucker.
was 0.3 to 1 milligram. Yet, you can walk down any pharmacy aisle and you'll see stacks of sleep aids packing more than 10 times that amount. Dr. Richard Wertman, the MIT neuroscientist who discovered melatonin, was quoted as saying, "People should not self-medicate with melatonin." But why is our society popping pills of melatonin each night and even giving them to children? That's why at Umzu we created Zoo Sleep. Zoo Sleep's all about helping you naturally fall asleep faster and longer, allowing you to wake up feeling refreshed and ready to attack the next day. Get a good night's sleep and attack your day with Zoo
Let's
Sleep.
try this.
Click through
Fuck
to
it.
learn more.
At Amazon Freight, we know the only thing better than having a friend with a truck is having a friend with a bigger truck and an on-demand freight network, so you can choose when you want to book.
Dismissed the plan as aspirational, but Hamas followed the blueprint.
Like, look, they're saying it. They literally dismissed it as aspirational. They could never do that.
Shocking precision, reportedly practicing breaching the gates and storming a kibbutz, paragliding into the communities, all of which the world saw executed with lethal precision on October 7th. The IDF showing me where the Hamas infiltration began, just as the report said it would. This is the gate.
This is also a wild thing that Israel's doing where they just like keep posting their greatest L of all time. Brother, this is incompetence. Like you should be fired. Why do you have a job? That I don't understand. Hagari going up and being like, this is the tunnel. This is the gate. It's like, bro, you literally are like, you're like a brigadier, rear admiral general in this military that failed its basic duty. Like, what are you doing?
Where the Hamas terrorists broke through one of 30 locations where they gained access. But the Times says one Israeli analyst tried to raise a red flag on the report just 3 months before the attacks. An analyst for the Israeli intelligence agency warning it's a plan designed to start a war, adding it.
How do you think the average Israeli supporter in the U.S. will think of this? I think this kind of reporting makes Israelis more mad at their government than Americans do. Because remember, two things. Israel supporters in America have proximity. Like, they're far away from the direct consequences, so they can be way more bloodthirsty, okay? I've described this dynamic when talking about the kidnap posters, right? The hostage posters. In Israel, the hostage posters serve a very different role than the hostage posters in America. In the hostage posters in America, the role it serves is to constantly remind people of the violent, racist, anti-Semitic attacks that Hamas engaged in on October 7th, which is why all of our retaliation is just. The hostage posters in Israel, on the other hand, actually show the exact opposite, where it is a reminder to the Israeli government to stop bombing Gaza and to get the hostages back. So in that circumstance, Americans can be, like, American supporters of Israel can be very, like, much more callous and much more racist and much more violent in what they believe should happen, right? The second reason is because also Americans are Americans and we are so primed to doing violence towards Muslim populations. That's like kind of what we love to do. That's our bread and butter. That's what we love. That's what we expect. For that reason, you know, this is a nation that has looked at millions of dead Iraqi civilians and said, oh yeah, that's YOLO. That's just a dangerous consequence of fucking around with America, I guess. You know, for them, we love a genocide. We love an Arab genocide especially, so we don't really give a shit at all. So that's why I'm trying to say, like, this argument or this video and this investigation will be more frustrating to the Israelis because, you know, they see the abject failure of their own intelligence. It pierces through the veil too. Like, it just breaks the comfort blanket, the security blanket that you thought you had.
As you know, the Israeli government posted online on X last month, quote, contrary to the false claims, under no circumstances and at no stage was Prime Minister Netanyahu warned of Hamas's war intentions. They went on to say at no point was a warning given to Prime Minister Netanyahu on Hamas's intention to start a war. On the contrary, all the defense officials, including the heads of the Intelligence Directorate and the Shin Bet, assessed that Hamas was deterred. Do you know if the Prime Minister was in fact informed? Because it sounds like from your reporting that this document was widely disseminated in intelligence and military circles.
So we don't know if Prime Minister Netanyahu was presented with this document.
That's
we do
so
know,
bad.
and this comes from previous reporting, that he was warned again, again, and again, and again, and in details, at least in 4 different letters throughout the last year, that the members of the so-called axis of resistance, Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah, see Israeli weakness, and they might decide to use what they believe a weapon.
The most I'll say is this. I won't say that, like,
we are hard-working Americans.
This is what's important to us.
Options for reliable power.
Labor policies that help entrepreneurs.
That's prosperity.
Learn more at prosperityspossible.com.
This interior is rough. Luckily, eBay Motors is here to save the day with this. These wonderful goodies that will transform my interior. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, everything was super easy to install. So if you want to get parts for your car, make sure you check out eBay Motors.
they definitely knew that it would happen and then let it happen without a shadow of a doubt. But I will say this much. I think maybe, just like Hamas thought, that their campaign would not be as successful and as violent, obviously. So maybe Benjamin Netanyahu
trying to play
at
both sides
most
here.
saw this, or the Israeli security forces saw this, and basically thought, especially Benjamin Netanyahu, either through sheer arrogance and sheer hubris, thought that the impact would be marginal, but it would be good for the subsequent apocalypse that would ensue. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way they could kill 1,200 people inside of Israel proper and maintain positions inside of Israel proper for multiple days, like 2 days, 3 days. So even if something like this were to happen, it seems to me like their perspective was probably like, there's no way that they could actually make it that bad, like they could facilitate a strike that devastating, which we could technically use for our counter later down the line. So even if that's the only concession I'll make here to the whole like inside job narrative. You know what I mean? But yeah, I don't think Netanyahu would ever, I don't know, I don't think he would have under no circumstances do I think that Netanyahu would have ever allowed 1,200 Israelis to be slaughtered. No shot. 200 plus taken hostage. No shot.
Barak, as you know, intelligence officials, military officials have accepted responsibility. Benjamin Netanyahu has not in any form accepted any responsibility for the attack on October 7th. He had very early on, right before the operation in Gaza.
One fun reminder for everybody who's not paying close attention to what's going on in Israel. Netanyahu never apologized. However, he forced the head of Shin Bet, I think, and numerous other security officials to apologize to the Israeli public for October 7th. Just something to consider when putting yourself in the mindset of Benjamin Netanyahu mindset, also known as Philly mindset.
He had tweeted out a
Philadelphia's
criticism
very
of
own.
the heads of the military and intelligence, and then quickly withdrew that tweet and apologized for that. But it certainly seems like this is something he wants out there.
No doubt. By the way, there was a huge intelligence failure. It's not that it's not true. There was a huge intelligence failure. I just, in one of the emails, this analyst from Israel Signals Intelligence Agency, 8200, one of the headlines of one of her emails that was warning from this plan was, the headline was, "Death in the Kibbutz." Okay, how symbolic is that? Okay, several months ago, "Death in the Kibbutz," she wrote. So there was a huge intelligence failure.
Bro, that's crazy. That's actually, no, they're like, bro, this next one is called Paragliding into the Festival. They're going, in my email titled Paragliding into the Festival, I will detail to you that Hamas is going to paraglide over the border wall into a festival. I know it seems like there's no music festival yet, but there will be at that point. Please.
What the
heed my
fuck?
warnings. And they were like, oh, come on. Classic woman, lol. They literally were like, woman moment.
Failure, not at her level, but at the higher level of the people who are actually making the decisions, and that their job is to actually warn the political echelon of what was going on. But at the same time, Netanyahu did get a lot of other warnings that had to do also with,
They were like,
several
femoids,
situations
am I right?
where Israel's enemies were planning to gang up on it because of the domestic crisis.
Bro, even on October 8, we knew Shin Bet. In the month of March, I think, or maybe May, Shin Bet warned the Netanyahu administration that Itamar Ben-Gvir's actions and increased violence in the West Bank was going to cause blowback, and it was going to cause a national security concern. To which the Netanyahu administration said, and Benjamin
After
Netanyahu
this
said,
game, I
"You're
think I
woke.
might."
Woke culture has taken over the Shin Bet." So this was telegraphed years in advance.
This is what just 10 pounds of body fat looks like. If we want to drop this, we got to take our metabolism from this to this. This is a metabolism killer. This is a metabolism killer. And even this is a metabolism killer. The sad reality is most people eat these foods every single day and wonder why they can't lose weight. The best way to burn fat and get shredded is not keto, paleo, it's not carnivore, it's not vegan, and it's definitely not super intense exercises like this. That ain't how you lose weight. Cardio burns fat, right? No. Cardio actually burns calories, usually in the form of carbs in the bloodstream that are then replaced with the very next meal that you do eat and stored as more fat. This is why even when you eat low-calorie foods or you run for an hour a day, you get softer, but you don't actually lose any weight. And this is one of the biggest reasons why most weight loss attempts fail within the first 3 weeks. The truth is that Hollywood's elite actors and actresses, they can get
crisis over Netanyahu's judicial overhaul in the months before the war.
Alex, what do you make of this report? How are U.S. officials likely to react?
Well, Anderson, I really do think it goes to this theme that we've been reporting on for quite some time of the underestimation of what Hamas was capable of doing and certainly what they intended to do. You and I have talked about intelligence reports and assessments both on the Israeli and the American side in the days leading up to October 7th that indicated that Hamas might do something. Now,
you guys won't do because Israel's intelligence failure reflects poorly on them because Israel is America. This smells really like a fake story. More likely, Israel's leaking this info to pretend their intelligence capability didn't turn out to be a complete joke. It's like, bro, of course we knew better than we legit had no idea. No, I don't agree with that because Egypt literally also informed Israel. I don't agree with that at all, especially because this looks horribly bad for Israel and it creates a domestic backlash too.
No
Imagine
wonder.
How mentally destroyed that analyst is now, doing her job and screaming it. No, she's dead. I'm pretty sure she died. I think she was a part of the all women's brigade that was at the border. So yeah, that's the other part of the story that's like almost as insane is that if I read it correctly, the all women brigade that they were using for pink washing purposes, obviously, literally was one of the first to get taken out. Please don't believe the Israeli spin. The high level of Israeli directive was to allow the October 7th to go ahead so they can use it as an attack. The old Moshe Dayan strategy of provoke and revenge. Brother, I'm telling you right now, there is no provoke and revenge to this magnitude. Okay, you're misunderstanding the point. Provocation happens with Sharon going to the Al-Aqsa Mosque. That's a provocation with a knowing retaliation that will come from that. Provocation is not about allowing Palestinians to kill 1,200 people inside of Israel. They don't need that much to deliver incredible amounts of genocidal violence upon the Palestinian population. They don't need it. They need like way less of this to be able to behave this way, especially when the very foreseeable consequences for those who allowed it to happen will be vast.
what that something was expected to be was what we had seen before in previous rounds of fighting that were frankly rather inconsequential for Israel, and that would have been
if they wanted to keep provoking, they would go into the mosque or some shit again, and then Hamas would lob rockets, and then they would go in and rip. They would rip into the Gaza Strip over and over again.
Rockets being fired across the border, which then likely would have been intercepted by the Iron Dome, which is exactly what we're seeing on our screen right there. But there was no sense that Hamas would be able to.
Am I saying that Israel would have made this kind of response over, say, 100 Israeli killed? Yes, I'm saying that, yes.
To break through the fence and carry out the types of massacres that they did. There is acknowledgement and public acknowledgement here in the U.S. From intelligence.
I don't think Israel, even if they thought that this was a likely attack, I don't think a single person thought that it would be this violent. After all, Hamas didn't think it was going to be this violent. So What are we talking about? In the immediate aftermath of October 7th, like the official statement from Hamas, the official Hamas statement quite literally was something along the lines of like, the operation was incredibly successful and infinitely more successful than what we thought we would be able to get. So in my opinion, I think that arrogance plays a gigantic role there. The arrogance of Israel thinking that they could like hold back was understandable on the Hamas front. Like, of course, if you're a Palestinian militant, you're thinking like, yeah, this is like an insanely rich, insanely militarized border. There's no way that they would be able to get into a fucking military checkpoint and like rip through the barracks in 15 minutes with GoPro cameras. You know what I mean? Like, they probably did not think that it was going to happen to this degree. The example that I always point to is the 2021 airstrikes. It happened because Sheikh Jarrah was taken over. Hamas said, don't do that. Get your hands off Sheikh Jarrah or we'll retaliate with rockets. Then they did. Then Israel turned around and bombed the shit out of. Those were just literally over a couple rockets.
Intelligence officials and Biden administration officials that this was purely an Israeli intelligence failure. American intelligence officials are not taking any responsibility for this. They are laying it at the feet of the intelligence apparatus and security apparatus in Israel. Essentially, the U.S. has been so focused on China and on Russia and Ukraine that they just don't spend a lot of time thinking about Hamas and other Palestinian militant groups. Now, will that change going forward? That remains to be seen. We've certainly seen U.S. intelligence playing a much bigger role during this conflict with drones and other kinds of signals intelligence gathering. But in their minds, this is an Israeli intelligence failure. I think most will tell you that Netanyahu is not expected to survive this, but there's also an expectation that the heads of the intelligence agencies will also roll a reckoning.
Bro, they said we wash our hands, dog. Get YOLO. That's crazy.
At Amazon Freight, we know the only thing better than having a friend with a truck is having a friend with a bigger truck. And a network that's fully transparent about the cost of your shipment, where it's located, and when it'll be delivered.
I thought I lost there for a second. I could pull this through.
I'm probably chilling with, and I like my weed smoked by the pile, down around the mile.
Damn it, no, I lost.
She wanna get off the liquor, she love it just when I lick her, she sending me naked pictures and
Tea sensitivity is so common, it immediately feels like somebody's poking directly on their head.
Tits question mark.
That's what I was saying though.
All right.
And me and two girls, we're going to go and try and get some of our friends out of jail.
I'm done.
Try and use the
They can have a bitch come through.